And to that piece of lieutenant that's always on his podcast, bash us, yeah.
Attention to roll call.
That's right, everybody. Good morning. 8:05 live Eastern time, and of course, 4:05 for me in the 49th state of Alaska. Bright and early. We've got a great Friday roundtable. John, myself, and Marlon. The content machine doesn't stop giving. The saga continues in the NYPD. Former police commissioner claims Tariq Adams is running a crime syndicate. So, John, what do you think about former police commissioner Thomas Donlon, his lawsuit, and how do we move forward?
I'm not surprised. You're not surprised. Nobody on here is surprised. Even Mayor Tariq Adams supporters aren't surprised. There's nobody today that doesn't believe what Tom Donlon's saying. There are people that are going to undercut what he's saying. There are people that are going to brush off what he's saying. But nobody doesn't believe what he's saying. You know, this is not only Tom Donlon. We've had 4 top chiefs under Keechan Sewell separately with a totally different lawyer paint us the picture of what happened under Keechan Sewell. And now you have Tom Donlon, unrelated to those 4 chiefs. They were gone already. Completely unrelated to those 4 chiefs. And he's saying the same exact thing they are with a totally different attorney. I mean, nobody doesn't believe that this is how Tariq Adams is running his NYPD, that his minions are running it. I mean, honestly, Eric, I read the court lawsuit and I'm sitting there and I'm going, oh my God, this is everything that we've been saying for 3.5 years. This is coming from the interim police commissioner saying the same exact thing that we were saying. And yes, obviously, he's a fan of the finest Unfiltered because he's used a lot of our terminology, but our terminology was hitting the nail on the head at exactly what happened. Our analysis was fact-based. Tom Donlon confirmed that. The chiefs, the 4 chiefs that put in their lawsuit confirmed that. The numerous other lawsuits confirmed that. Tariq Adams is corrupt as the day is long.
Yeah, good morning, guys. Good morning, chat. Happy Friday, everyone. Those court documents are there's some statements in there that are like they're amazing, you know. It's you can literally write a movie based off of Tariq's antics alone in that, you know.
Mom, what would you call that movie?
I don't know, like man, it's crazy, but John is absolutely spot on. Like, they confirm everything we've been saying throughout these years, and I mean, you got to know why they hate the podcast now, because you know we've been detailing this in real time as it's been going on, and but it's curious that it's one thing for us to say it, but it's just mind blowing to actually read it, and then you go back in the timeline and you look at what was happening. Yeah, I think we're gonna have a great conversation today. I think there's so much to talk about in this that we can literally have weeks of podcasts on this. And I think, by the way, that I may have to revise my prediction whether Tariq Adams is gonna win. Because based off of this alone, the amount of money like Adams supporters are gonna have to sink in this to kind of manage the perception and to change public perception that this administration is rudderless is going to be astronomical. And I'm really gonna have to reconsider, because I'm not sure if it's gonna be possible after what Donlon says in this.
So I think there's, I was really thinking about this. I was reading through the court case just as we all have been doing. And 2 things struck me. Excuse me. 2 things struck me immediately. Just even initially reading it right away. And when you start to get into the meat and potatoes of it. And those 2 things are this. So the first thing is, John and I have sounded the horn over 3 years now about the corruption at the top tier of the upper echelon of the NYPD. And now we have the entire finest Unfiltered family sounding the horn about the corruption that continues. But what's interesting about that is John, myself, Marlon, Sal, Rob, Ron, we have so much, and Tom Joyce and Peter Faselli. We have years and years experience of the NYPD. We understand the system. We've been exposed to it. But Tom Donlon was the interim police commissioner for a very short term. Very short term. In that short amount of time, he was able to describe a broken system that was turned on him. And so I think that's why it goes into the second thing, I think, which is so important, is if we go back to Adrian Schoolcraft, it shows a broken system even before Mayor Eric Adams. And then with that broken system, if we get someone or a group of people at the top tier of the upper echelon and the administration of how damaging it could be, and these are the results. And the broken system is if you're a whistleblower, they turn on you and turn you, the whistleblower, into an emotionally disturbed person. So look at Adrian Schoolcraft. That was 2009. It turned on him, and they made it appear that Adrian Schoolcraft was a complete psychomaniac. And now we see the same thing, but we see it with people with power and how dangerous it could be. Because now Tom Donlon, with all his experience at 71 years old, the template and the broken system has turned on him, and immediately that is the response, and that's the reaction from this administration, from this broken system, that Tom Donlon is in cognitive decline. That's what we heard from Tariq Shepard. He's in cognitive decline. Right away, they attacked his mindset. We've seen it with victims who are whistleblowers of sexual allegations. Those women, their mindsets, their psyche has been attacked. And we see a broken system with tyrannical people who are in positions of power, and we see how far and how dangerous it could get.
So, I mean, there's so much with the Tariq. I don't even know where to start with this. Let's just play a little video that came out. This is what the news is reporting on the incident. This is coming out from ABC News. Let's play what mainstream media is saying. And, someone just said validation finally. I don't think so. I think we've been validated over and over and over and over and over again. Eric Adams is just a master manipulator. Right. And so, like, he's able to control the media. His move with placing a billionaire heiress was brilliant. It aligned him with the Trump crew. It aligned him with the media. I mean, but this is just too big to ignore. The mainstream media can't ignore this. Like, they have to report on this. And this is ABC. This is a friendly news station. Let's hear what their takeaway from it is.
New York Police Department's interim commissioner, Thomas Donlon, claims the country's biggest police department functioned as a racketeering enterprise at the direction of the city's mayor, Eric Adams. Adams appointed Donlon to serve as the interim commissioner last year after the then NYPD commissioner resigned following an FBI search of his home. But Donlon says that he was commissioner in name only, and that true authority in the department remained with the inner circle of Adams loyalists. So for more on this, I want to bring in ABC News chief investigative correspondent Aaron Katersky. And Aaron, a couple pieces of this lawsuit really stuck out to me. It accuses the NYPD as being criminal to its core, and also has this point where it says that senior leadership here engaged in outright malfeasance using the NYPD to consolidate political power, obstruct justice, and punish dissent.
This is a devastating lawsuit by someone who, in theory, was its leader. Thomas Donlon briefly led the NYPD as interim commissioner, and he effectively compares the organization to a mafia family and accuses it of violating RICO statutes in the way that he says Eric Adams ran the department. Under his leadership, the lawsuit says the machinery of public safety was not used to serve the people of New York City, but was repurposed to protect political allies and punish internal dissent. It names top brass who are still in positions of power today, and it is seeking damages for what he called a humiliating act of vengeance, the arrest of Donlon's own wife. He said it was orchestrated to send a message to him not to meddle in internal affairs as he was trying to root out corruption in the ranks.
Well, and what's interesting about this is that Mayor Adams he's a former officer himself, right? And ran on a campaign of rooting out corruption and racism.
And is running for a second term on that very platform. So the lawsuit comes at a bad time for the mayor, who is asking the city of New York to trust his leadership for a second term and to right the department ship. Crime is down. The NYPD is still showing its effectiveness, Alex, but this lawsuit describes rot from within.
And Aaron, I'm putting you on the spot here, but have we heard a response yet from NYPD on this?
Not NYPD directly, but from City Hall. The press secretary for Mayor Adams calls the accusations contained in this lawsuit baseless and absurd, from a former employee who, when given the opportunity to lead the greatest police department in the world, proved himself to be ineffective.
All right, Aaron.
So, I mean, that's to me, that is the craziest statement I've heard from Kayla Maimalek. Even like, we've literally, anyone that's been paying attention to this administration, you've seen everything that Tom Donlon laid out in this lawsuit. You saw Tariq Shepard take zero instruction from him, right? Remember a while back when he said the department's going to have one voice, and then Tariq Shepard, Cass Daughtry, what's his idiot, John Shell, they go out on Twitter and they're literally blasting stuff out. And I'm like, whoa, what happened to the one voice? I guess there is not one voice. I guess this guy's a police commissioner in name only. And so Kayla saying that all of these accusations are baseless and he had proven himself to be ineffective, when you literally seen him boxed out by Eric Adams' minions, real time, reported in the news. We know about the shove at the New York City Marathon, right? And that's part of his lawsuit too, where he was shoved and cursed. Any other person would have been terminated. Tariq Shepard was literally, nothing happened to him. He wasn't brought up on any charges. He received no discipline. And next thing we know, he was no longer the Deputy Commissioner of Public Information, and he was running around wearing 3 stars. And everyone's going, when did he get promoted to a 3-star chief? And so I have numerous tweets that I put out documenting that, in fact, he was never promoted to 3-star chief. And then Tom Donlon here says he promoted himself with the help of Anthony Marino. They promoted themselves. They went around the police commissioner's back. And so when I'm sitting here and I'm listening to this, you hear all the corruption, and then you hear them say, well, but crime's down. And I'm like, wait. So a criminal enterprise is lying about everything. They're locking up their critics' wives. They're targeting their critics. They're breaking every law. They're spending millions of dollars unlawfully. They're enriching themselves. And you think that they're reporting crime accurately? Great investigative work. You guys are doing a great job. Keep it up.
You know what's interesting about this? I received a lot of texts, a lot of phone calls in response to this lawsuit, and a lot of those phone calls I received were actually apologetic. And they said I have to be honest. Quite a few people, some good people I know that served in the NYPD, said I got to be honest. I owe you and John an apology. John, I don't even know if I even had a chance to tell you. So I said, well, good. It's about time. And they said, well, some people had said, well, I figured you were just 2 bitter former NYPD employees that went on a rant. And that's what we were painted to be. So if this is what it takes to be validated, so be it. Because we sounded the horn, and myself and John especially were smeared on X and Twitter by fake monikers, which every indication comes from John Shell and Cass Daughtry and other characters of the upper echelon attacking our character, going on a smear campaign, trying to silence us. Now, initially, we figured it was egos, and I'm sure that egos are a big part of it. But the reality is, it's because we sounded the horn on what's really going on with the police department. It's ineffective. It's inadequate. And why is that? Because it's a crime syndicate at the upper echelon. Even more than that, a lot of the stuff that we have said was specifically in that lawsuit, particularly self-promotion. That's a word commonly used on this podcast. We talk about self-promotion. We talk about self-serving. And that's what's going on with this upper echelon. Self-serving when it comes to promoting themselves, promoting and paving the way for their offspring and relatives and anyone tied by cronyism and nepotism. We talked about a mafia family. We often joke about crumbs, movies. We've had memes that reference to mafia family. And Tom Donlon referenced to that also in the short time that he's there. And to disclose any information, Tom Donlon has never spoke to John, myself, Marlon, Sal, never had any contact, any conversations with Tom Donlon about what's going on in the NYPD before he was interim police commissioner, during or after or present day. We've never had a conversation. This is all on Tom Donlon's word. And in that short amount of time, it matches exactly what we've been saying is going on this upper echelon. And it's pretty damning. And it shows with a broken system, when you get people with greed. Grace says it here. Greed. Here you go. Greed. People that abuse their power. Egomaniacs. Unprofessionalism. Unqualified. This is the byproduct. This is the outcome. And Tom Donlon experienced it in that short amount of time. And you know what? I don't know. At 71 years old with his resume, maybe he has the right network and the right contacts. Maybe they messed with the wrong guy this time. I'm not sure. It's very possible. But I think every dog has its day, and this may be it. I always say Eric Adams is a Norwegian rat and he can survive anything. And I agree with you, Marlon. I said, and I've said it before, I think Eric Adams could still win. But this might be the nail in the coffin. This might be it. Because with this, it really should retract the unions getting behind Eric Adams, and it should retract some people with their wealthy special interest to get behind Eric Adams. So this could change the course of a lot. Again, in the mainstream media, they're saying that it's validated at this point. I mean, what does it take to validate? We have the first indicted mayor of New York City. We've seen just extreme amount of nepotism, cronyism, allegation after allegation upon allegation of sexual assaults, and miraculously, now Eric Adams' records are missing because of Hurricane Sandy. It's one thing after another. If you look at each piece, you might say, okay, could be an isolated incident. But when you compound and you put all this information together, it's pretty alarming. It's pretty damning. And this administration is dangerous, not just to the NYPD, but to New York City. Tom Donlon, I think he put the nail in the coffin. Marlon, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's even worse than that. Donlon refers to the NYPD as being he says we're so dysfunctional. We're verging on systematic rot and weaponized criminality. Okay. He describes that when as soon as he became PC, he noticed the inexperience and how unqualified the top executives are, and chief among them was Tariq. He explicitly it's explicitly noted in here that Tariq has 22 collars, and he said basically they were appalled. He was appalled that a guy with 20 years in the department had such little arrests under his name, and he describes repeatedly Tariq's actions in that Tariq basically did whatever he wanted. He mentioned Tariq didn't come to the meetings as the DCPI commissioner, and when he made himself a 3-star, he didn't show up to meetings either. He said basically Tariq and Marino used the PC seal to basically officially promote Tariq to a 3-star chief, and it's just utterly hilarious that this guy was like he basically doing whatever he wanted to do. All the memes we made of Tariq basically deciding what outfit what Halloween costume he was gonna put on today were real. And it's described in here of a guy who basically, like, he had no real duties, and like he had no real experience, and he Donlon calls it unearned valor in what he did. Yeah. So I think this goes beyond just a dysfunctional and incompetent administration. It verges on like he says, weaponized criminality. And in fact, when you look at the fact that Tariq promoted himself to a 3-star, and even Jessica, she reduced him to a 2-star, but still, he gets to walk out of there with that pension, when in reality, for being insubordinate and for all the things he did to Donlon, including that little scuffle they had at the parade, he should have been terminated. In an NYPD that's efficient and runs like it's supposed to, a guy like that would have been out the minute he showed signs of content and insubordination to Donlon. But he, even through Jessica Tisch's administration, he was still, even a couple months in, he was still there. So yeah, reading all of this, I have to wonder just who exactly Tariq has in his corner that even with all of this, Adams kept him there, and Adams put up with that nonsense. If there's one thing this actually shows, is that Adams is as bad as we think 1PP management is. Adams is an even worse manager himself, because he failed to keep these people in check and let them know that, listen, he's the PC, and you can't be insubordinate. We're a paramilitary structure. We're a paramilitary organization, and you got to abide by the rules, regardless of whether you have how many stars are on your shoulder. So that's something you guys out there who still think that Adams is the best candidate amongst the ones we have. After reading this, you need to think to yourself, how great of a manager is he really? Do you really want that back in there?
Dude, he's horrendous. I've been saying it forever. Could you imagine him just being in charge of fantasy teams? He's horrible. You could give him, like I've been saying for 3 years, you could give him the most profitable Dunkin' Donuts in New York City, and it will fold in a month under his management style. Look at who he appointed to his top positions. These guys are not only inexperienced, there's something wrong with them. I mean, this guy's going on the news. You promoted yourself. You rubber stamped the police commissioner's seal of approval. You gave yourself a raise. I've never heard of that. The guy should be in jail, dude. It's 100, everything he outlined in there. And then for Kayla Mamalek to come out again, the disgruntled Fox 5 former employee, to come out again and say that, all this is baseless. Again, Tom Donlon didn't tell us anything new. I'm just sitting there and saying, I read through that thing twice, bro. Hours. My wife is like, what are you doing? Stop looking at what you did. I just kept reading. And I went back and I read again. And I was like, it took me, I think it was like 2.5 hours every 100 pages, 2 hours every 100 pages. And I'm like, oh my God. And I didn't read one thing that I didn't know. But one thing that stood out to me is I was out a few months ago and I ran into somebody. I was in Florida, actually. I ran into somebody in a bar. Somebody I didn't know, but they knew me. Like, hey, listen to the podcast. They work directly for Key Chansul, right? I'm like, okay. Confirm that, in fact, 100% he worked directly for Key Chansul, high rank. And the things that he told me, and it was prior to me ever hearing Tom Donlon's name. It was Key Chansul was completely boxed out. She couldn't promote anyone as the police commissioner. She couldn't transfer people into her own detail. Banks put in her people around her. She had spies all around her. And that kind of coincided with what I was hearing from other people, where I heard that she was having fake conversations in the car because there were spies all around her and she was trying to flush them out. She had no ability to move. And now you read this, and I'm like, it again, it's not nothing I didn't hear, but it's things I've heard from other people. And it was concerning Ki Chan-su. And Tom Donlon's telling us the same exact thing. So now you have this idiot, Tariq Shepard. He promotes himself. He goes on the news and he says, I think Tom Donlon was having cognitive issues. He was experiencing cognitive issues and he wasn't able to run the New York City Police Department. Okay, Tariq, why did you promote yourself to 3-star? Because I clearly just showed the evidence that you never were, which corroborates exactly what Tom Donlon was saying. And then the other question leads to, how are you good at recognizing people's cognitive ability when you had an employee who was experiencing mental breakdown, was experiencing alcoholism? You were well aware of it. You allowed him to keep his firearm, and he went into New Jersey in a drunken binge and shot somebody and left them paralyzed for life. That whole thing could have been avoided if there was some experience, if there was some leadership coming from this man, Tariq Shepard. Instead, he did nothing. And the blood of that young man, that life that was ruined, that's on Tariq Shepard. But here he is playing psychologist and telling you that Tom Donlon was experiencing mental decline from a guy who was promoting himself. And what else was he doing? Playing dress up all over the place. You remember the Columbia thing? He's showing up in tactical gear in ESU. It's like, dude, you're a civilian deputy commissioner. Why are you wearing ESU thing? And now you're sitting there talking about people's cognitive ability. Like, it's unbelievable. Before you guys go, let me just play this clip because I can't look at this guy's face anymore. Hold on. Let's just hear what he's got to say, and then you guys.
I think Commissioner Donlon was isolated the moment that he walked in and his phones were taken by the FBI. That created extreme trust issues. And yes, he was showing many signs of some cognitive issues, that he wasn't up to the task of being police commissioner. The mayor specifically brought in Commissioner Donlon because he was an outsider. And he wanted to give the optics that an outsider is coming in. And I want it to be someone from the from the feds. So that way he can take an honest look and he's not from within. And I think he disappointed the mayor in that way. So it would make no sense if you're trying to create a criminal enterprise to bring in a complete outsider that nobody knows and give them a fresh look at everything that we're doing. And so all this stuff is baseless. It makes no sense. I think Commissioner.
And before you guys go, one last thing from anonymous inside of NYPD, right directly, top tier, anonymous confirmed source. Tariq Shepard 100% was never officially promoted to chief of staff, and he was carrying 2 shields, a deputy commissioner and a 3-star chief.
I don't know if one day is enough discussing this lawsuit because there's just so much. First of all, he's a complete idiot. I agree with what's her name. What's her name? How you doing, by the way? In the chat, great friend to the podcast. She says, hold on, these comments are flying in here. I'm trying to keep up here. She says, optics, not the best motive to make sound choices. Absolutely. You just listen to the choice of words. He says they brought in an outsider for optics. He might as well have just said for the illusion to show that this administration was transparent and honest. He might as well have said the same thing. And then immediately it goes back to what John and myself and Marlon and Sal have been saying since day one, is that if you're a whistleblower in the NYPD, despite any rank, immediately you will be attacked, you will be smeared, you will be defamed, and they'll go after your psychic ability. They'll go after your mindset. And it's exactly what they did to Adrian Schoolcraft, even before Eric Adams. But now, with this dangerous administration, they attacked Tom Donlon's psychic, his psyche ability. This is absolutely insane. So I think it's interesting to what you said also, Marlon. I'm looking at the lawsuit here. It's just so much. And you said that, how did Eric Adams put up with it? I don't think Eric Adams put up with it. I think he encouraged it. Even when the public, particularly the city council, Adrian Adams, called on the unprofessionalism by John Shell and Kaz Dorsey on social media, Eric Adams defended it. We've seen numerous times where Eric Adams encouraged and defended the unprofessionalism, the egomaniacs, the appearance of impropriety by this upper echelon. So if we look at the lawsuit, and I think it's something we've said, it's not very specific, but it's something we've said for a long time, and it's damning. Number 7 on the lawsuit, according to Tom Donlon, these individuals exercised unchecked power while Donlon was sidelined and used as a public relations shield. Now, let me just stop there for a moment. And we said that, I remember particularly, John and myself said that on a podcast, on an episode where we presented, I think it was a press conference, and where Tom Donlon was thrown in after the entire press conference was geared towards, I think it was a shooting of something. They talked specifically about that shooting. Tom Donlon had nothing to do with it. And then they brought Tom Donlon in to promote Eric Adams and talk about how great Eric Adams was doing in the NYPD. So, yes, he was completely sidelined and used as a public relations shield. It goes on to say, the defendant...
Before you go, Eric, and you remember the sheriff thing, too. When after he wasn't vouchering, they had Tom Donlon stand up there, and he's like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's the video we should bring back. He was used and sidelined as a public relations shield. Unbelievable. So it goes on to say, the defendants undermined Donlon's authority by blocking his merit-based promotions and instead elevating unvetted individuals of their choosing. We've been saying that for the longest time. The defendants then fraudulently, this is a very serious allegation, used Donlon's official police commissioner stamp without his consent to legitimize and carry out their corrupt scheme. Now, I'm a firm believer, and John, I know you are, Marlon as well. If in fact those allegations are true, that Tariq Shepard and Anthony Marino utilized his stamp of approval to get a promotion, I think they should be arrested. That is theft. And exactly what you said, Marlon. They're going to get a merit-based promotion, unqualified and unauthorized, to receive not only just a star on their shoulder, but the benefits and the amenities that come with it, because that pension will reflect those stars. And then it goes on to number 8. Upon assuming his position, and what I'm going into now is Donlon did what he was supposed to. Donlon quickly uncovered systematic corruption and criminal conduct being perpetuated by the NYPD's executive leadership. He reported these findings directly to who? Defendant Adams. That, to me, hook, line, and sinker. Not only did he didn't report it to Internal Affairs, he didn't report it to DOI, he went right to the source. He reported it to Eric Adams. And now look, as a whistleblower, it completely turned on him.
And you know, and that's the thing. Like, the minute the article came out, I started getting, oh yeah, convenient. Who'd he tell? I'm pretty sure he told Eric Adams. I'm gonna say he went right to Eric Adams. And Eric Adams, what did Eric Adams do? Turn his minions on him. That's what he did. Like, that's what happened. Like, he, you know, and where are you going? Oh, he should have reported to DOI. Who's in charge of DOI? Oh, let me remind you, Eric Adams. And then I know a lot of you guys are disgusted with the union endorsement of Eric Adams, but let me make you a little bit more disgusted, because Eric Adams was fully aware that this lawsuit was coming down. So what he did was he called the unions. All right, get out on the front steps of City Hall and endorse me. Notice the PBA wasn't there. They're sitting in the background. They're waiting to see what Cuomo does. They're waiting to see what their master Hochul tells them to do before they make a move. But this union jumped out in front of gross incompetence, jumped out in front of criminality, corruption, jumped out in front of all of this to say, oh, yeah, we endorse Eric Adams. He's the best one for us. Absolutely disgusting. You should disgust you even further. And anyone on here telling me anything about Zohran Mamdani or Eric Adams, you disgust me just as much as the unions. I don't need to hear it. If you would vote for either of them, I have no respect for you. I'm just being totally honest with you. If you will check the box for Eric Adams or Zohran Mamdani, I have no respect for you. I don't, you know, everyone that told me that, I'm like, okay, you're a loser. You don't know what you're talking about. You have no problem with corruption. You have no problem with any of it. It's better than whatever Fox News is telling me. I've been listening to Fox News for 3 weeks because everyone in New York listens to Fox News all morning. And all I see is them promoting Zohran Mamdani. It's Zohran Mamdani, smear after smear after smear. And all everyone is in everyone's head is Zohran Mamdani. New York City, like we've been telling you for 3.5 years, is being run by a criminal enterprise. And you idiots are sitting there and saying, oh, let me vote for this because it's better than socialism. Are you brain dead? And meanwhile, you're talking about the guy that's in 4th place. He's getting crushed. Be Republicans if you are, or be conservatives, and get behind the guy who actually has a shot to win. His name's Curtis Sliwa. Instead of saying, I'd rather vote for a criminal enterprise than Marxism. Absolutely disgusting. Just as disgusting as the unions.
Before Marlon goes, sorry, Marlon, I just want to say this. I think it's quite interesting. I want to fire back at something Tariq Shepard said. So I think it's interesting that Tariq Shepard said, it's interesting that Tom Donlon has all this negative stuff to say about Eric Adams when he took a position after being the interim police commissioner. And I said to myself, you know what? How about if we flip that coin and say, you know what? It's pretty interesting that he was awarded a position after being interim police commissioner, and no one said a word about his qualifications and his cognitive ability. But now that he's a whistleblower, he wasn't qualified, and he's now into cognitive decline. So it's amazing when you look at something from a different side of the coin.
Yeah, and last thing on that point, that one point, it's
Sorry,
it's either Tom Donlon was in cognitive decline, and Eric Adams hired him, so he has no idea how to interview people, read people. He's a horrible manager, or they're lying. Those are your two options. Eric Adams hired Tom Donlon, so if he was in cognitive decline, that's on Eric Adams, right? So again, shows he's a horrible manager. But everything that man said, they haven't tried to debunk one of it. They just attacked his character, proving that everything he said was correct. And you could go back the last 3.5 years of this podcast. Nobody's shocked by one word of that lawsuit. Nobody, not Eric Adams supporters, not anybody in the media, not the Trump DOJ. Absolutely nobody doesn't believe every single word of Tom Donlon's lawsuit. And, people are saying, I don't think anything will come of it. I don't think anything will come of it either. You know why? Because the DOJ under Trump is weaponized, just like it was under the Biden administration. These people should be in jail. Tariq Shepard should be getting perp walked right now for what he did.
Yeah, absolutely. And city council, if Adams isn't going to do anything about that, city council, you really should look into it, all of this, But Billy John in the comments is saying that we supported Eric Adams, and I'm not sure which podcast you were watching, Billy John, but that was definitely not us, because we've been telling you for a long time now that he's incompetent and corrupt, and now these documents are telling you it themselves. And if you read along and follow along in the documents, and you go back to what was happening at that time frame, it all matches up with what Donlon is saying. And you look at their behavior, you look at the things they did, you look at the dog and pony shows they had on Roosevelt Avenue and all of that, and it matches up completely with what Donlon is saying. Eric Adams is incompetent and corrupt. Okay, and we've been telling you guys this for a while, and this is why we like we said before, we don't understand what the unions are doing. Because even after all of this, do you really want to get behind Adams? Okay. Donlon himself is telling you how detrimental the leadership and their incompetency is to the men and women on the streets who are actually putting in the work. And here it is, your unions want to continue that. Okay. So, like we said, Eric Adams is incompetent. Donlon, it's noted in here that Donlon was told by Eric Adams that Eric Adams kind of regret. First, he put Donlon in charge to get the department in order, and yet he would not respond to what Donlon told him were the problems in the department, and who Donlon told him were the insubordinate executives in the department. And also, it was expressed to Donlon that Eric Adams regretted not putting Kaz in line, not telling him to get in line and to work with Donlon. And you have, as I said before, the last go around, this Eric Adams is an incompetent leader, because had he been a good manager, he would have been able to tell Kaz, hey, listen, this is your boss, and you gotta get in line, and he didn't. Okay, so again, Eric Adams is incompetent, and we've been saying all along, don't vote for this guy. Don't get New York City deeper into this sinkhole, you know. But just to go back on Tariq again, I kind of understand now why, or I think I understand now why this guy was LARPing like with ESU gear and all of that now, you know, because Donlon, it's noted in here that Tariq was jealous of Donlon, you know, becoming a PC. Like all of them, Tariq, Kinsella, which I've heard, by the way, that she is still jockeying to be PC at some point, right? Kinsella, Madry, Kaz, they all wanted to be PC, and they were all upset that Donlon was put there. And Tariq in particular, kind of, he more so than all the others, kind of showed that resentment to Donlon, you know. And I think him LARPing around with ESU gear is just how they work, you know. Because as Donlon says, they're concerned with trivial level appearances, okay, and media appearances, than actually solving a lot of the problems. Okay, they're concerned with self-promotion and getting a media limelight, and that perfectly describes Kaz, by the way. So I think just hearing him say that puts what Tariq was doing, dressing up and you know, getting in front of that camera, puts it into a new understanding for me.
Playing dress up, you know, I think it's important to note the broken system and the template of what are the responses and when someone's a whistleblower. So for one, we already identified that one of the responses when someone is a whistleblower is to smear and attack the character of that whistleblower by saying they're emotionally disturbed, cognitive decline. We saw it with Tom Donlon here. We saw it with sexual people who have made, women in particular, who have made sexual allegations. They have been smeared. Their emotional stability has been attacked. Their character has been attacked. What is the second thing that also happens when someone is a whistleblower? Their family gets attacked. How do we know that? John and myself on this podcast, by this administration, has tried to suppress New York's finest retired Unfiltered podcast, tried to suppress our voices on social media, tried to suppress anyone that's in contact with us, try to suppress anyone that's a subscriber to John and myself, tried to shut down this podcast. Obviously, it didn't meet any success, and what eventually came when John and I continued to do this podcast, it came for our kids. We had numerous articles have surfaced how John and myself, our kids, were threatened with a map showing an M4 or an AR-15, showing maps from New York to Florida, where we live, pictures of people with their kids trying to simulate and threatening our kids. So there were attacks to our family. And the same thing happened to Donlon. According to Donlon, because he's a whistleblower, his wife was attacked. So here you go. Let's go to number 14. Number 14 in the lawsuit. The retaliation extended beyond professional consequences and a calculated and deeply personal act of vengeance. Wow. John, doesn't that sound familiar? When John and I spoke up about vehicle pursuits, we spoke about Kaz Daughtry being promoted by Rocket Fuel. We spoke about the unprofessionalism by John Shell. We were attacked. Our kids were attacked and threatened. And Internal Affairs completely stonewalled us and refused to take a report. Defendants Tariq Shepard and Gerber orchestrated the false arrest and unlawful detention of Donlon's wife, Miss Deirdre O'Connor Donlon, a private citizen with no connection to his official duties by NYPD officers under their control. This was not a mistake. It was a deliberate abuse of power designed to punish and intimidate Donlon for exposing their misconduct. Miss Donlon was handcuffed behind her back, subjected to a full body and personal effects search at the 17th precinct, and told by Officer Vargas that she would be transported to central booking. Now let's stop right there. Where in the world have we ever heard of a police commissioner, interim police or any commissioner, their son or daughter or wife or nephew or cousin, some relative being arrested? And if so, I mean, does anybody remember a chief by the name of Scagnelli? His kid was arrested constantly for some violent crimes. And I don't think he was arrested. And if he was, at some point he was, I don't think he ever made it to central booking. His wife was arrested for supposedly a suspended license and transported to central booking. Think about that. He's the commissioner. His wife went in handcuffs to central booking. We've had some violent perpetrators. We have
Eric, on that point though, what cop in their right mind,
Exactly.
once they pulled her over and she's like, "Oh yeah, I'm Donlon, that's my husband." What cop in their right mind is running her license? Nobody.
Bingo. Exactly.
Nobody.
Exactly.
You're gonna be like, oh, I'm sorry. You're gonna be like, oh shit, I'm getting transferred just for pulling this lady over, because that's the atmosphere of the NYPD, which shows you this guy was a total outsider, and that cop was 100% put up to doing that, and people were telling him, "Don't worry about it. We got your back. The mayor's with us. This guy's out of here. Don't worry about it." No cop in their right mind. And let me just go one further. Past, present, or former police commissioner, you pull over their wife or their kid, there's no criminality. It's a minor traffic infraction. No cop is running their name, because if they did, their career is over.
100%. Exactly. That was the point that I was about to get into. There is no way that Officer Vargas would have even checked her name. As soon as she said she's the wife of the police commissioner, she would have received an escort, not handcuffs behind her back. She would have received an escort, probably would have been extremely apologetic. I highly doubt that police officer is going to handcuff the wife of the police commissioner. That is career suicide. Anyone that knows law enforcement, or forget about law enforcement, any job in the world, if you arrest the CEO's wife, if you arrest the commissioner's wife, you arrest the boss's wife, you're probably going to have a problem. And anywhere in the world. And it goes on to say, this coordinated humiliation was a direct warning. You're damn right. The NYPD defendants would stop at nothing, I believe that, to silence and personally destroy Donlon, even if it meant violating the constitutional rights of his spouse. Absolutely. And that was the point. John, I'm so glad that we're on the same page here. So that's exactly the point I wanted to get to. No cop in the NYPD, think about it, you're active or retired, would you ever go on anything? As soon as she said, Tom Donlon, I'm his wife, no cop is going to ask for her license. I don't even think they're going to ask for her ID. Ma'am, I'm so sorry. Can I give you an escort? Am I right, John or Marlon? After that encounter, I guarantee you that cop is going to call who? The PDA. Listen, I just stopped Tom Donlon's wife. Please, just make sure everything's okay. Tell him, I was very respectful, professional with her. I didn't do anything wrong. That's the first person I would call. What about you guys? What do you think?
I'll do one better, Eric. If you pulled over grandma, you telling me you're gonna arrest grandma and you're gonna send grandma to central booking? I mean, seriously,
Well,
regardless
I mean,
of
he
her
could have
being
been.
the wife of the
Hold
PC.
on, he could have been a traffic cop though. And then they target old white women. I mean, those are the easy ones. They want to get a CCRB.
I mean, yeah, sure. There are some guys who are scumbags like that, but the majority of cops, I'm sorry, you're not gonna be arresting grandma, okay? It's just not happening, okay? And yet they follow through in this, okay? So there's 100% some sort of coordinated retaliation against Donlon here, because it just doesn't make sense. And by the way, to the cop involved, I don't understand. Like if it was me, I'm sorry. I know this alone is going to be a mess, and it's going to go to court, because I don't understand. Like I would have been trying to find a way to get out of that, or to not even, I just don't understand why the precinct, the personnel over there kind of went along with this, because I'm telling you, I would have rather get like jammed up than to get involved in this, because I know in the end that nothing good is going to come about this, and that there would definitely be some sort of scrutiny into this, and maybe that this would end up in court. So
I like to see the chain. I want to see the chain of text and phone calls made. Who made the phone calls? Who eventually contacted Officer
You're
Vargas?
never getting it. Adams is going to lose his phone.
Never.
He's they can't find his police record. It's it got lost in Sandy miraculously. Miraculously, I could find you Serpico's record, but Adams got lost in Sandy. Yeah, all right, get out of here, guy. I know where those NYPD records are, and that's bullcrap that they got lost in Sandy, because we have them in a warehouse, and that's a complete utter lie. We have Serpico's records. We have Eric Adams' records. Don't sit there and lie. And that's another thing coming out from this Adams administration, that his police records are gone. You're never getting those, because Corporation Counsel is dirty as hell, and they don't hand over discovery. And any type of Rosario material is destroyed by the NYPD or hidden, destroyed or hidden. But the other point I wanted to make is, where's that cop today? Did he miraculously get transferred? Did he miraculously get promoted a little bit after? Maybe it's something that you guys want to look into. So yesterday, while these losers are on the stairs of City Hall doing what they're told with their boss, reporter Katie Honan from the city, always out there, hot day yesterday in New York City. She's right in the face. Listen, watch the question she asked. Listen to his answer.
Yes.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for coming out. Appreciate all of you.
Mayor Adams, yesterday the interim police commissioner you appointed said the NYPD under your administration is a criminal enterprise. Do you want to comment?
And whatever you do, keep Katie safe.
Do you want to answer the question? The lawsuit alleges you had a criminal enterprise in the NYPD.
A frivolous, disgruntled employee.
You appointed him. What went wrong then if he was so disgruntled?
Why did you appoint him in the first place? Thank you, brother. Thank you. Good.
4 police commissioners in your tenure.
I think your management of the department has...
I personally love Katie. I would hate her if I was the mayor, but I personally love her. 4 police commissioners in your tenure. But listen to what he says. He contradicts what Tariq said, right? Because Tariq's on the news flapping at that he's got cognitive issues. He's saying Tom Donlon is just a disgruntled former employee.
I think it's also, what I think is also interesting about Tariq's response? There's a lot of, you got to listen to the words that Tariq says. A lot of the words he says are key elements of someone that's lying, trying to cover for their guilty conscience, right? I read a lot about this. Like the words he says, optics. Optics could easily be replaced with illusion. Outsider could be someone that, we created as an outsider. And I think also what's interesting about that is when Tariq says that his cognitive decline, he says that what he says about Tom Donlon is that Tom Donlon, basically what he's saying, he didn't fit in. That's what he's saying. He didn't fit in. It's really telling of what Tariq's saying. And when you listen to those words, the optics, this whole thing was an illusion. So everything that Tom Donlon says reflects in Tariq's speech. Yeah, it was optics. It was an illusion to put him in that position, to make believe that he was the commissioner. In reality, he never was. It's just it's amazing to me that the galls on these guys, like the galls on Tariq Shepard, the galls on Eric Adams, they just feel they walk on water. But I do believe every dog has his day. So is that day coming? I don't know. This might be it.
Well, yeah, Donlon didn't fit in, and Donlon expressed concerns about being an outsider when he first got in too. But he didn't fit in that he didn't rubber stamp everything they did. which is what they had come to expect under Caban. You know, Caban seemed like he really didn't care about being PC. You know, and wasn't there a talk that Caban really didn't want to be PC, but he was kind of pushed into that slot to begin with. So these guys seem to me like they were used to doing whatever they wanted, and certainly if you look at what happened under Caban, they did. You know, they promoted whoever they wanted. They look at all the guys who had charges against them, who had pending charges against them about sexual various sexual harassment allegations, and they were allowed to basically quietly retire with their pensions these are all under Caban, right? So the guys who were allowed to retire were all like cronies of these guys. They were all cronies or had come up underneath these guys. So I think they were used to doing whatever they wanted and rubber stamping, and a PC was only a rubber stamp, you know? In fact, you got to wonder how many times Caban actually used that rubber stamp and how many times it was actually used. It was probably being wielded by Marino or whoever else was there before, while Caban was in the office, you know? So when Donlon comes in the office, it's like they're already used to doing that, and they hate the fact that Donlon now expects them to return to the paramilitary structure and to actually have a guy at the top who's actually in charge again, you know. But it's you know, Joel Ramirez in the comments, he says that about the cop who arrested Donlon's wife, that he was given lawful orders to arrest her. I get that, Joel, but as we've seen throughout these last couple of years, you guys on patrol, you guys really have to analyze the situation and think for yourself and ask questions. And you know, you take names, you ask questions, and you even pick up the phone and call legal if you have to, because when the stuff starts rolling downhill, they're gonna put you out to dry. You know, you can't say, you can't just say, I was ordered to make the arrest by the boss. That's not going to get you out of saving your job. You really have to think here, and you really in a lot of ways you have to maneuver around a lot of this. And this is again why we talk about how the department is really hurting from the lack of veterans on the job and guys with experience to kind of help you navigate your way through this. So.
Yeah, so a lot of people are saying how horrible it looks for Trump's DOJ to have dropped the criminal charges on Eric Adams. I mean, we've been saying it since the day it happened. You know, we've been saying it since the day it happened. It was disgusting. It looks self-serving on Trump's part. It looks like it benefits his children and his organization to build casinos in New York, to get city contracts. It looks completely self-serving at this point. And again, for those of you saying Adams has the best chance, he's number 4 in the race. He's like, I don't know what the hell you people are talking about. Turn off Fox News, turn off Newsmax, look at the polls independently, go through all of them, go through the feelings out there, and then make an informed decision. Please do me a favor. Don't listen to Charlie Kirk and these guys, you know. So we've been calling that out for a while, you know. And then I think Jared Findell had said that. He says that, you know, one thing about Donlon's lawsuit is he's not just calling for money. He's calling for systemic changes in the New York City Police Department. Same thing we've been calling for 3.5 years, over that probably, where he's saying the department is corrupted and there needs to be some type of federal intervention oversight coming into not only the department, but into City Hall as well. And this is New York City under Eric Adams. You know, this is a replay of the days of Tammany Hall. Again, on paper, Eric Adams is the most corrupt mayor in New York City history. He has overseen the largest exodus of police officers of any mayor in of any previous mayor. And it has everything to do directly with his policies and the people that he put in place to run the New York City Police Department. And anybody saying different, you're lying. That's why you'll never, ever come on here and have that debate. You'll never go back and forth with me online because I got the receipts, I got the facts. Anybody saying anything different is lying. Eric Adams is a corrupted individual. The department under Eric Adams is systemically corrupt and it's weaponized. And who benefits from it? His friends. And the beginning part of that lawsuit, like the first 100 pages, you should read through it because all it is showing all of the cops around Eric Adams and the crimes they committed and how they weren't charged. They weren't even investigated, and how they flourished or were allowed to retire in the still of night, or maybe even got promoted to chief of department.
You know what's interesting also? There's just so much stuff coming out of Tariq Shepard's stupid mouth. But he also says in that little small excerpt, he said, in the short time that Tom Donlon was there, his phone was taken, so there might have been a lack of trust. Wait a minute. If I recall, who else's phones were taken? Wasn't the entire administration, wasn't Eric Adams' phone taken? Wasn't Jeffrey Madry's phone taken at his house?
You think Donlon remembered his password?
Something tells me that Tom Donlon had one phone, maybe two, not seven. He remembered his password. I don't think it's funny that we go back. Let's go back to that, by the way. I think that's great. I worked in the Lower East Side. I worked in Police Service Area 4. You know what's interesting about Police Service Area 4 is that is next to a body of water. In Hurricane Sandy, we had water about 8 feet high. Guess who still has records in the NYPD? I do. My records are still available, and we had a 2-week blackout that followed. But somehow, Eric Adams, who knows where his command was. It wasn't near a body of water. But Eric Adams, miraculously, his records have disappeared from Hurricane Sandy. Hurricane Sandy's way past his time in the job. And someone said here, it's pretty funny earlier, there's no records to be found because he was an empty suit. But
that's true. But I was in IAB after Sandy, and I was in charge of the record unit, one of my many jobs, and we have a warehouse in the Bronx with all the police records, including Serpicals. Eric Adams' records are still in the New York City Police Department. It's a bold-faced lie.
Oh, absolutely. It's a complete lie. Everything that comes out of this administration is a complete lie. I'm just, at this point, it's a content machine. It's great for the podcast, but watching because I really believe that every dog has its day. And these bums eventually, something's going to catch up. And this might be it. You know what? They might have messed with the wrong guy this time. He's got a lot of connections. He's got a lot of experience. And I think that's something that's very telling about this lawsuit. And you said it earlier, John. I agree. And that's something that triggered right away. He's not just asking for a monetary value with the suit. He wants legitimate change in this police department. There's also something else that's interesting, right? On Wednesday, if you didn't get a chance to see it, we had Peter Moskos, who is an author, John Jay College professor, and he's also a critic of policing. And he served in a short period of time as an experiment. He was a Baltimore City cop, and he was interviewed. He was here on the podcast Wednesday with John and myself. And it was interesting because we were in conversation, and he said that he felt that other than the NYPD, that Eric Adams is doing a pretty good job. And I kind of laughed at that. I said, that's kind of funny, right? Because the NYPD is a huge centric focus when you're the mayor of New York City, especially you're running one of the largest police departments in the entire world in comparison to the 9th largest army in the entire world. And Eric Adams said it himself. His entire campaign was built on that the key to prosperity is public safety, and he can't run the NYPD properly. He is by far the worst manager because he's a corrupt manager. There's no doubt about it. Everything that Eric Adams does, everything that he touches just doesn't look right. And you know what? I'm waiting for the perp walk one day. I can't wait. If there's a perp walk, I would definitely fly in. And Joe Ramirez said it here earlier, brother. You're absolutely right. He said if we were in the city, they would have flaked us. There's no doubt about it. We said it all the time. Are they capable of flaking us? They sure would. So, Officer Vargas, who called you that day? Who called that person that called that person? How many people were called to get to you? You didn't find it odd? I mean, John, Mom, would you not be shitting your pants? I would be shitting my pants. And I'm not scared of much in my life. I got to be honest. But if I had the commissioner's wife behind the wheel and I got a phone call to lock her up. I'm like, oh my God, what shit did I get myself into? What is going on? Are you serious? I would have called the union right away. Pat Henry, did they call you? Did they call you? I mean, I would have called you. They want me to lock the commissioner. What the hell do I do? This is career suicide. Are you kidding me? Is he a detective? No, I gotta look into it. I'm gonna find it. I'm gonna look it up right now.
So then the other thing that the lawsuit goes into, and Tom Donlon says, is how the misuse of overtime, particularly federal funds. He highlights exactly what we said. Numerous units, not just EPS, not just the chief of department's unit, they were coding their overtime as they were fighting against counterterrorism. This is federally funded money. This is another corruption scam. They're doing it while they're working from home, while they're on vacation, putting in overtime. They're doing all this stuff. It's a federal crime. Misuse of federal dollars. So not only were they stealing money from taxpayers with unworked overtime and unearned overtime, but they were also stealing money from the federal government. And he doesn't just label it out for EPS or Marjorie. He says, no, the CRT team was doing it as well. So we have other crimes being happened there. And who was in charge of that? Tanya Kinsella. Who else? Jeffrey Madry. Who else? John Shell. Who else? Kaz Daughtry. Who else? Tariq Shepard. All of their employees were misusing that code, right? And again, Trump's DOJ dropped the ball again. Looks terrible on Trump, right? Looks just as bad as him flip-flopping over Epstein, which now we're going to release the records even though nobody cares about it. Like, it's like, come on, dude. I don't even believe what you put out now anyway. Whatever you give us now, I still don't believe it. You know, so something happened there. But they labeled that out. The other thing they labeled out is CRT. That CRT was a wild, reckless unit. He thought it was a danger. He thought that they were untrained, that they were unprincipled, that they were running out there like cowboys and being involved in vehicle pursuits and bad stops. Who did that sound like? That sound directly like what Matt Pontillo was saying. And so for the people that are saying this is a money grab, Matt Pontillo's lawsuit came out 3 days prior to that. You think it took 3 days to write this? I'll guarantee him working with his attorney, John Scola, took months. Not just when he was left New York City employment. He was working on this prior. That, like Marlon said, that what's being written here is a movie and a book. What do you think about Tom Donlon basically narrowing everything we said about the CRT and also the misuse of federal funds?
Well, I think his statement at the beginning that that these challenges always existed, but basically that they've been taken to a whole new level on this administration is spot on. And if we go back to the overtime concerns, you know what's funny about this is you look back at your career and all those times, like the supervisors would tell you, make sure you get the right code on that overtime slip. You know how many times would they drill it into you? I remember in Intel they would always drill that into you. Got to have the right overtime code on there, or they're gonna kick it back to you. And meanwhile, you see like how much Fed money was being manipulated into things that they weren't meant for at the top. And like I said, this has, to some degree, that this has always been a thing, because when we had like the little borough counterterrorism details, they had me on a counterterrorism detail on a corner in Bed-Stuy, next to the Myrtle, those projects on Myrtle, and I'm like, this is clearly, I don't think bin Laden wants to blow up a project, Why am I here on a counterterrorism detail? So the job, to some degree, has always been manipulating it. But to see it done to such a degree, such a blatant degree, is like just a whole nother level, And it goes back to what I said earlier, that these guys were just used to doing things like doing whatever, and they nothing ever got back to them. They They didn't have any real oversight at the top of One Police Plaza, and it's just they hated that, and they hated the fact that Donlon comes in here and tries to kind of bring things back into order and to bring that paramilitary structure back. So it's crazy, but it goes back to exactly what he says. This was the systematic dysfunction. It metasized into something far worse than even the challenges that existed prior to these guys getting to the top of One Police Plaza.
Well, to me, there's no doubt about it. John Scola definitely, he did a great job on that lawsuit, did a great job articulating Donlon's claims. That definitely took months, but all kidding aside, he probably could have just put in AI, maybe ChatGPT or something like that. What's going on in the NYPD? And it would have came up. New York's finest retired Unfiltered Podcast says, and that's Tom Donlon's lawsuit. But aside from that, all kidding aside, it goes back to what I said earlier in the episode. I think it was our first go around. It's a broken system. Even before the Eric Adams administration, I will agree it's a broken system. And thank God we've had, for the most part, formidable people in positions to not fester the amount of corruption that we see now. Did we have some corruption? Yes. It was small cases of opportunity, isolated corruption. But what we see now, it proves that this broken system in the wrong hands could abuse an extreme amount of authority, could cost the city billions, could be extremely dangerous. And this lays it out right here. Donlon lays out everything that we've been talking about in the podcast. He talks about how Kaz Daughtry is promoted by rocket fuel. He talks about the unprofessionalism by John Shell and Kaz Daughtry on social media, which is a major play. Everything that he's saying reiterates what we've been saying in this podcast, what reporters were saying about their claims of the attacks by this upper echelon, what the city council was saying. I never thought we'd all be on the same page here, but we are, because this is a crime syndicate family. This is run exactly like that. It is a mafia, and if you're a whistleblower, they will stop at nothing to come after you, including your family. And John and I experience it right now. We haven't heard any response from Internal Affairs since April 17th. We haven't heard a word. The only response was John was swatted by the NYPD on behalf of Travis Rutherford, very intelligent sergeant detective in Internal Affairs. But this is what we see. They'll stop at nothing. There's no doubt about it. It's scary. It's really scary for some people. For us, we understand the silver linings of the police department, which gives us more ability to move through this. But, for the average citizen, what could this police department do to you? I mean, it's really scary. And it shows what we've been saying in this podcast is absolutely right. The mayor of New York City in this political structure has far too much power. Where does someone go to report corruption? DOI falls under the mayor. The police commissioner is appointed by the mayor, and the mayor holds all the cards and the power. And that's why we've been saying it. This needs to change. We need a complete change of structure. The commissioner and appointed commissioners of various agencies of New York City should be elected officials. They should be elected by the people and not be appointed by the mayor. This shows in a broken system, if you get a tyrannical leader and a tyrannical administration, how far this could get.
The other thing that the lawsuit labels out is something that we talked about in depth too on the podcast, which is Roosevelt Avenue, the joint operation. How Kaz had told Tom Donlon that he had a dream about having this coordinated thing happen at Roosevelt Avenue. And what Donlon said was that, when he looked at the plan, what he saw was complete inexperience, and he saw a public relations media campaign. He didn't see an effective plan that was actually going to stop crime on Roosevelt Avenue. He basically, again, confirmed everything that we told you, that Roosevelt Avenue wasn't a real operation. It wasn't meant to really stop crime. It was just meant to displace it and look good and Kaz Daughtry to make videos. And he talks about how obsessed Kaz Daughtry is in the media. I mean, and again, like, people could say whatever they want about the lawsuit. I mean, does anyone disagree with anything that we've brought up so far, or any points that he's pointed out? He also pointed out the numerous members of the upper echelon of the NYPD who have lied over and over again to juries, to IAB, and been found guilty of lying. Zero integrity. And instead of being terminated, right, because they terminated Sal for working off duty, even though they couldn't prove that he was, and they said because he lied about not working off duty, they're going to fire him. Terminated Sal for lying, but you have Jeffrey Madry, who was found guilty of lying twice in a year period, and he just kept getting promoted. Kaz Daughtry lying, promoted. John Schell lying, promoted. And like it leaves you with the taste in your mouth, something that I've been saying over and over and over again. Integrity is not welcome in the Eric Adams administration. They do not want people like Marlon, like Eric, like myself, like Sal. They do not want honest people. They want people that are afraid. They want people that are going to do as they're told. Look at how they rewarded people with allowing them to retire, that they were criminally arrested for violent sexual assaults. They let them retire with full pension, but Marlon asked a question and they ripped his whole life from him. They ripped his whole life from him, terminated. And so what you see is a clear message: you will not go against this administration. And so those are just two other highlights of the Eric Adams administration. Kaz Daughtry and his fake social media campaigns, the Roosevelt Avenue campaign, and it can't be left understated that this administration should have been folded. Eric Adams should have been removed from office over 2 years ago. This is the most corrupt administration in New York City history. You've seen it play out live. If you watch this podcast, you heard it narrated in real time. Tom Donlon did not reveal anything that everyone that's been paying attention in New York City politics doesn't already know. The NYPD is systemically corrupt under Eric Adams, and Eric Adams operates New York City like a criminal enterprise. He doesn't follow procedure. He doesn't follow norms. He doesn't follow the law.
Yeah, I guess I'll go. So let's go back to Roosevelt Avenue, right? When that from the get-go, we talked on the show that the department was approaching this in a piecemeal way, where like after the 60 days were up, that those same conditions were just going to return to the area, and it would have been an all for nothing, And in this complaint, Tom Donlon, he notes exactly that happened, and he even points out how he doesn't name it specifically, but he notes that Hiram Monserrat and the community later on calls for the assistance of the federal agencies, which Donlon himself stated that it says that he tried to get the NYPD to cooperate to pull in the feds into Daughtry's task force, his Roosevelt Avenue task force, but was basically dismissed by Kaz and Chell and Gerber, who all basically told him that they don't want the feds, that they don't like the feds and they don't trust them. So this is it just confirms what we said. Roosevelt Avenue and that entire initiative was just dog and pony show, because the NYPD was concerned with surface level trivial crimes and not solving the actual underlying long-term problems, which needed a complete solution. And we said that about the CRT too. When Kaz would have the CRT going to Canal Street one day and then back to Roosevelt Avenue the next day, or back to Pennsylvania Avenue in Brooklyn the other day, that these were all piecemeal solutions that doesn't solve the underlying problems. And by the way, Donlon also notes in here that the precinct manpower, even as these guys were filling up their units, like or like DCPI doubling its personnel as soon as Tariq gets there, that the precincts were short of manpower, and that we talked about on here that you need precinct manpower to help solve these problems long term, rather than shifting around a limited, small units to patch the problems.
Yeah.
So
listen to what he said here, because it's really good. Eric, before you go, listen to this. This is coming out of 609, line 609 on the lawsuit. The approach formulated by the NYPD defendants proved to be a short-term reactive enforcement blitz driven by media attention and defendant Daughtry's personal zeal for publicity, rather than combating crime and gathering intelligence. While ORR focused on visible low-level offenses, serious violent crimes escalated. During this period, robberies along Roosevelt Avenue corridor surged 44%, and assaults rose 46% compared to the prior year. This misalignment of resources occurred while local precinct staffing was simultaneously in decline, making long-term success unsustainable. Consequently, the operation failed to produce lasting results. Although Adams showed impressive, questionable statistical accomplishments, as predicted by critics and reported in the media, upon conclusion of the ORR, the same criminal activity, including open-up prostitutional and illegal markets, prompted return to Roosevelt Avenue, demonstrating their ineffectiveness of collective defendants' chosen strategy. The abject incompetence of NYPD leadership, specifically defendants Marjorie, Schell, and Daughtry, all of whom, as always, had their incompetence enabled and supported by defendant Adams, was and remains detrimental to public safety.
Wow. I specifically remember saying on this podcast that this operation, the optics of this operation, and the way that Kaz Daughtry put it out there publicly was not going to curb crime, that it would actually displace it. It would spread it out. It would actually cause more crime. Going out and arresting a couple of Johns and a couple of sex workers was not the solution, only a Band-Aid to this problem. And I remember specifically saying, when it comes to this, the intel should be gathered to get to the illegal military-age males and Tren de Aragua, which was funding the operation in Roosevelt Avenue. And that's not what they were doing. Instead, it displaced it and spread it out. I said the problem would not be contained anymore to just Roosevelt Avenue. It would spread out and be displaced across 5 boroughs. And that problem would actually become a bigger problem and ferment even further. But again, he solidifies and validates, they want to use the word validate, the mainstream media. Tom Donlon validates exactly what we've been saying on this podcast. And that's why I say it all the time. When people say you don't know what you're talking about and they support Kaz Daughtry, how do you not see it from New York City? How do you not see it from One Police Plaza when John sees it from Florida, Marlon sees it from a distance, and I see it from the opposite side of the country and on the opposite side of the world? We see it from a distance. How do you not see it up close? Kaz Daughtry is just promoting his own self-image. Exactly that. Promoted by RICO fuel, not qualified. And it also shows that Eric Adams was not this New York City mayor that gave opposition to a sanctuary city, that gave opposition to open borders. It shows also that Eric Adams, his administration, was not working with their federal partners because they were not looking to deport military-age male violent criminals. So this actually weaves into politics. Everything weaves into politics, especially with this administration. You see how politics and public safety are centric around Eric Adams' administration when it comes to this corruption. It's disgusting to see, but it's right in your face.
Your mic, Marlon.
yeah, I'd like to point out how terrible Eric Adams is as a manager, because, Eric Adams told Donlon that he's putting him there to get the department in order, and how he needs the department in order for him to win re-election again. Okay, because as we pointed out here, Eric Adams 1.0, his platform was I'm a security-minded moderate Democrat. So how when his whole security platform fails now what else does he have to bring to the table? So here it is. He brings in Donlon, tells him he needs him to get the department in order. Donlon points out problems like what's happening on Roosevelt Avenue, and Adams fails to get these guys in line. In fact, right, Donlon states in here, I don't recall which line it is, but he states that as soon as he got into the PC's office, Adams told him, "I leave these guys alone." He points out Chell, Madry, and Daughtry, and he says, "Leave these guys alone. These are my guys. I want you to work with them." Right? So how good of a manager is he when Donlon points out these problems with something that Adams touted as a big accomplishment, as Roosevelt Avenue? Mind you, he was on Roosevelt Avenue filming, recording a video 3 times in 2024. 3 times, right? 3 times he had press conferences there saying how well the things were going, right? How good of a manager is he when after Donlon tells him these problems, he fails to correct his executives and actually institute the change that they needed to these policies that would have brought long-term, that would have helped to bring a long-term solution to that problem.
Listen to what he says here, right? Listen to what he says here. ORR, as implemented under defendant Daughtry, with support from Madry, Shell, Shepard, and Gerber, failed to meaningfully reduce crime, despite NYPD claims to the contrary. So he's telling you, crime isn't down. They were lying to you like we told you. They've been lying to you, and they continue to lie to you. Media reports and community members indicate that prostitution, drug activity, and gang presence quickly returned. One local leader, he's talking about Hiram Maserati, even called for FBI and DEA involvement to address the worsening criminal activity. That's after this operation, people. And if you guys look at Ramsey Frias, who's running for city council, he's continuing to show daily the crime that is occurring on Roosevelt Avenue today, the stuff that they told you was gone. Donlon identified a dangerously outdated mentality among the collective NYPD defendants, who erroneously believed that the NYPD could not or should not collaborate with federal agencies. The incompetence of Operation Restore Roosevelt Avenue results in failure. Ultimately, ORR, defectively conceived and incompetently executed, failed to reduce crime. Due to the collective NYPD defendants' willful neglect, the operation forced only on what can be deemed trivial offenses, while violent criminals continue operating with impunity, directly endangering the public. So there you go. Could not or should not cooperate with federal agencies.
I just want to go back. I just want to go back to something Eric Adams said. And after doing the podcast and constantly thinking about this, I realized that Eric Adams was actually the first time in his life he was telling the truth about Tom Donlon. Tom Donlon was a disgruntled employee. You know what disgruntled means? Dissatisfied. He was dissatisfied with the operation, with the corruption that's going on in this administration. And who did he report his dissatisfied opinion and perspective and anecdotal experience on the police department? He reported to Eric Adams. So yeah, Eric Adams is telling the truth. Tom Donlon was in fact a disgruntled employee. He was dissatisfied and angry with the operation, the corruption that was going on, the mismanagement, the inadequate promotions, the rubber stamp promotions, the theft that's going on, the operation that was complete optics, And I'm sure he was disgusted by, he had to be, right? If you read that lawsuit, if you realize he's disgusted by the people around him, he's disgusted by the image, their unprofessionalism. What he saw, I'm sure, just leaves a stain in his mind of what the NYPD is, or in comparison to what he believed it was before. Think about that. The image in his mind is tarnished forever when he thinks about the NYPD. He was embedded in this crime syndicate. He was surrounded by John Shell, Kaz Daughtry, Jeffrey Madry, Eric Adams, Philip Banks, Tiny Kinsella, Anthony Marino. Let's go through the names. Surrounded him, Tariq Shepard, by people that he can't trust, lack integrity, and only loyal to Eric Adams and not loyal to the people in public safety.
Yeah. So I'd like to point out also that what we talked about for Roosevelt Avenue also applies to the drone program. Okay. Donlon points out that he says that the broader pattern is that qualified professionals offering constructive reform were sidelined or retaliated against, while incompetent loyalists were protected and promoted. And he's specifically referring to Kaz Daughtry, who he says, we're talking line 618 here. He says, defendant Kaz's position was protected not by merit or performance, but by a direct pipeline to defendants Madry and Adams. When challenged, defendant Daughtry would run to his political benefactors, ensuring his mismanagement was never questioned, and insubordination to Donlon or any police commissioner was rewarded. Okay, and he's talking about how a lot of the benefits of the drone programs were kind of squandered because Kaz refused to get he refused to coordinate his efforts with other units like TARU and outside partners that in the federal agencies. And he says that Kaz would often be flippant and egotistically dismiss his concerns. And again, where have we heard that this program isn't being implemented properly? Because we've talked about it, and we've talked about also how the industry who watches this show should be just as concerned as we are. You shouldn't be against this show. In fact, you should very much be a fan of us because we want an efficient NYPD. And these technologies are never going to be implemented properly in this department if you have such incompetence and such corruption and incompetent individuals behind the scenes running it. And here you are, Donlon is specifically calling that out here.
Yeah, listen, all this is great stuff that you clipped out, by the way, Marlon. This is good. So this is what Marlon was alluding to. This is a line 620. After Donlon's tenure, reliable sources informed him that defendant Adams privately admitted regret over not forcing defendant Daughtry to cooperate and set aside his arrogance. Now, this is 3 police commissioners later. The drone program's potential was lost, and another opportunity for innovation was squandered. Yet another casualty of defendant Adams' loyalty first, merit last approach to governance. This again demonstrated Adams' lack of administrative and operational skill. Remember what Chris, whatever his staffer said about him, that he didn't believe that Eric Adams had the capacity to navigate New York City?
Yes.
This episode underscores a broader pattern. Qualified professionals offering constructive reform were sidelined or retaliated against, while incompetent loyalists were protected and promoted. The NYPD, under the collective defendants' direction, had become a place where good faith collaboration was treated as insubordination, and personal vendettas were allowed to sabotage public safety initiatives. This theme was echoed throughout the NYPD by every disheartened MOS who believed promotions should be given as were based on merit. So, I mean, that right there, I mean, it's a disturbing pattern. Dude, we're an hour and 34 minutes into this podcast. We haven't even scratched the surface of this. There's going to be a part 2, and I'm sure a part 3 and a part 4, and maybe even a part 20, because there is so much here. It's insane.
Yeah. And so you guys in the chat, we posted it at the top, so you can go and download it and read it yourself. And you really should, to get an understanding of how this department is operating. And if you object to what the unions did yesterday, right? If you have a problem with that, like we do, you should talk about it to your fellow cops and those who don't understand. And you should share that document throughout the department. You know, to guys who are maybe too busy to understand, or maybe refuse to understand what's going on. You need to share that, you know, because the only way we're gonna you know, help change things is if, you know, we wake up the sheep. So
I think it's also important to note, and I think everyone should read that lawsuit, is how detailed and descriptive it is of what Tom Donlon experienced in such a short time, just to show how heavily weighed and how this crime syndicate operation was going to NYPD, and how they weren't trying to cover it and conceal it either. That it was just, it was so blatant that immediately upon the inception of Tom Donlon and the appointment of him as interim commissioner, he said he felt that impact right away. He felt it right away. And what's also, I think, important to note is reading through. You have to say to yourself, please, you know, anyone in the chat here, friends, you know, of the podcast, haters, look at this detailed, descriptive lawsuit. And I will say this: these are not frivolous. These are not minor allegations. These are some very serious allegations of not administrative infractions, but rather ultimately corruption. These are allegations of actual crimes that are being committed. We're talking about stolen valor, right? We're talking about stealing pension money, stealing amenities that were not authorized. We're talking about, you know, an allegation retaliating towards a whistleblower and going after and targeting his wife. And I think that is the most. That's right.
Oh, you're muted.
We'll definitely get to bingo, but you know, I think that's the most compelling, because I'm so glad that you had jumped in, John, because I thought to myself when I read that thing, imagine, I remember being a cop on patrol. Imagine being that cop and stopping a police commissioner's wife. How that would be career suicide. And how did the union not respond to that police officer making that arrest? That is a huge deal. I don't think that's ever happened in the history of the police department, at least to any knowledge that I have. Absolutely not. It is insane. It is really insane. And that, I think, is really the meat and potatoes to this lawsuit, is that he's not talking about administrative infractions. We're talking about actual crimes, retaliating against a whistleblower, stealing time, rubber stamping promotions. This is some big stuff here. And it goes on even further.
Yeah, sorry, I don't know why that played in. They just started playing. I was like, what the hell?
I played that thing so many times, but the guy can't get over it. After chopped cheese, and after you know, Juju and their whole crew watches the podcast, you'd think maybe he would stop, but no, he doubles down and just keeps going.
So yeah, let's just have a little fun break for a second. So this is the segment of the week coming out of Kaz Daughtry's social media, which is a complete clown show that you guys are paying millions and millions of dollars for, to watch this idiot with his new embroidered hat and his new embroidered shirts. I mean, I don't understand why the guy, like, if you're gonna misuse New York City taxpayers to clothe yourself, you should probably dress good. He dresses horribly. Horrible. Everything's embroidered. It's a joke, and this is the stuff that he makes. Let's. Sorry, it jumped ahead, but here you go.
John, hold on. question.
I told you I was going to win. We outside of Melrose City Center. I just got bingo. Now I'm out of here.
I got a question. We can play this thing 1,000 times. At first, when I first saw this escapade, I said to myself, did he really win, or was that actually set up? Did he pretend? Did he have everybody set up like, listen, I'm going to pretend I win, and then let's do a whole video? I bet he didn't even win. I think that whole thing was set up.
100% set up. Everything is a perception management campaign. Again, how many takes for this one? How many? I don't like the way I look there. Oh, my belly looks a little big. Oh, I don't like the way I'm wearing my hat. Oh, you didn't get you didn't get me walking away properly. I would love to talk to some of the people in here how that happened. He 100% didn't win. And if he did win, that means that someone was sitting there videotaping him the entire time until he won, which is also possible, by the way.
Well, absolutely.
What's up, Marlon?
No, I said absolutely. And by the way, I forgot which line I came across it, but Donlon actually notes that they're obsessed with perception and manipulating public perception. He actually says it in there. I remember seeing it. I'm like, I gotta save that, But this document is 271 pages. So, like John says, there's just so much information in here that we actually need like a week to go over it.
You know what? After reading that, I said to myself, and when was he commissioned? He must have made this lawsuit right away. This had to take more than months. This must have took close to a year. When was Tom Donlon actually the commissioner? I think it was, I want to say maybe October last year, on November.
Yeah, around November he left. That's when they brought in Tish. Around November, late November, I believe.
I gotta laugh at this comment. Good morning, Ron. Ron Lason says, Eric, you should play the beginning of that bingo video when you get coffee and donuts instead of a horn. Inside joke, by the way. Yeah, I wanted to have a horn or a siren when we get coffee and donuts, but nobody liked it except for me. I still like it. I'm not
Jack
back
liked it until I ripped it apart.
I'm not back down. I like it.
So, dude, another thing. Listen to this shit. So, this is where Anthony Marino came out with myself in the police academy. 120 alumni, rumored to have been caught in the back of the car one time playing a certain board game with another cop. Don't know if that's true or not. I just know that his sergeant was like, "Oh, you guys are in the back of the car,"
Yeah.
Don't ever let me catch you in the back of the car again. Caught them in the RMP. I don't know. I'm just hearing. Maybe it wasn't true, but I think it was. So a sign of the systemic rot came from defendant Marino. His official duties in the police commissioner's office were administrative, such as tasking others with requests and orders from the police commissioner, processing invoices, liaison with the chief of personnel, and handling routine matters. The above-cited duties were the protocol and procedures. Whilst defendant Marino ostensibly exercised these duties and authority, his true power lay in his control over processes and willingness to operate opaquely. In a blatant breach of professional protocol, defendant Marino deliberately concealed from Donlon that he possessed a rubber stamp bearing Donlon's full official signature. Every police commissioner has an official rubber stamp made upon assuming their duties. It was only through notifications from a senior NYPD MOS that Donlon discovered that the defendant Marino was in possession of said rubber stamp and abused its usage to authorize fraudulent and unmerited promotion of defendant Shepard. When Donlon confronted Marino, he offered a weak excuse that the stamp being utilized by administrative staff who had the rank such as defendant Marino held was a long-standing practice to alleviate backlog. In each of the promotional lists that were fraudulently altered by the individual, defendants had officers selected by Donlon removed from the promotional list and replaced with officers that were not approved by Donlon. On paper, defendant Marino illegally stamped Donlon's name to the promotional list to make it appear falsely that Donlon had approved the list. So when you read into the lawsuit, Donlon says that 3 times, 3 different promotional ceremonies, he himself, by city charter, he is the police commissioner. NYPD promotions are his responsibility and his responsibility only. 3 times he sent up promotional lists and his names were removed, and Marino rubber stamps the removed names. And he also claims that Banks and Pearson were actually the ones picking the list. So the police commissioner would send his list up that was approved. They would send back, and Marino would just rubber stamp it. Absolute coward. Absolute coward. Totally believe it.
Well, I tell you what, I know Marino, and so do you. We know him from for a long time. I don't know him that well. It wasn't that close, but we worked with him early on in the career. We know him. He's gonna fall real quickly. He's a softie. He's gonna fall real quickly. I would, you know what, John Scola, I would get to him first. He's gonna fall real quick. That takes some balls, and that's not an administrative infraction. That's a crime. That is a crime right there. You should be arrested. So think about what you did. Bums. And I've been saying it, and I've gotten a lot of opposition, and I don't care. I'm going to stand my ground, and I'm going to continue to say it. Every chief in the upper echelon of the NYPD that is active right now is compromised. In some way, shape, or form, every chief is compromised. And look what we see. More and more, you start to hear different names involved. Essig, Pontello, McCormick, Marino. They're all compromised in one way, shape, or form. They're a bunch of bums. And Marino's going to fall too. He's a total softie. I can't believe that you had the balls to do that. But it just shows in this corrupt administration how you feel empowered. That is a crime right there. Calling for your arrest.
And FYI, I have confirmation from anonymous sources with direct access to all of them that says that exactly what Donlon is saying here is 100% true. It's not fabricated whatsoever. And people are in the chat are saying it's like the auto pen. That's exactly what it is. You're taking the authority away from the police commissioner. Yeah, I mean, is it true? Is what Marino said true that you use the stamp? Like he will have administrative people with authority to sign. But when I sign something, like I've signed for my bosses a million times. I've signed for chiefs. I've signed for inspectors. I signed my name to it, and I said for chief whatever. For whatever. I never signed their name. I never rubber stamped their name without it documented that I was in fact the one that did that. And the reason they didn't do that is because you can't do it in that process.
That's right.
That process is the power of the police commissioner, and they stripped him of his power. So he was the police commissioner is completely a showpiece under Eric Adams, like we've been telling you, is a completely emasculated showpiece. And that's what Donlon's saying. And it confirms everything that was told about T. Chansul, right? Because you all heard the same stuff, right? She couldn't promote people within her ranks. They had spies all around her. Pearson and Banks boxed her out. Daughtry wouldn't listen to a word she said. Shell wouldn't listen to a word she said. Even who was the chief of department that ran out? The bald white guy on the Sewell. He was in charge of Staten Island at once. Ken Corey.
Yeah.
I heard through numerous credible sources, same thing. He had zero power, and he was like, these guys are just doing whatever the hell they want. I don't want to be involved in this. And so he retired.
Yeah. Another bum that didn't have the balls to come out and say something.
He did get 3/4 like 2 weeks ago, though, even though he retired 2 years ago.
Congratulations. Another scammer. It's funny how Madry had to have his AVL removed. If anyone wants to know what AVL is, it's basically the GPS for your car. He had to have to remove for his safety, but I highly doubt they removed the AVL for Tom Donlon. I'm sure they were monitoring every move he makes. Shout out to Nikki G from the comments here. Coffee and Donuts, $4.99. Puts love you guys. Donate this to their legal fees. That is hilarious, by the way. Steven S., my brother, shout out to you. Coffee and Donuts, $5. Says 5 on Faith Friday. keep telling the truth. That's what this is. We're telling the truth. We've been telling the truth the entire time. You know what? If anyone doesn't agree with me, tell me why. Tell me why every chief that is active, not the ones that are on terminal leave, the ones that are not working out sick, the ones that are out working actively on the payroll. Tell me why any of them should not be compromised. They're all compromised.
Yeah. So on line 414, guys, it's specifically noted in there that Donlon says that he was a figurehead, purely like he was purely administrative, and he was a figurehead with diminished powers, right? And it's very curious that he later mentions that Pintos, Chief Pintos, warned him that he was basically in a viper's nest, So I thought that was hilarious, considering that Pintos would have known since Caban was there how all these people were trying to undermine him. Yeah.
Again, name me a chief that's not compromised. Go through the line right here. Boom.
Yeah.
I would, but they're all dead. So, listen to how undermined he was. So we were just talking about promotions. Listen to this about transfers, right? Defendant Shepard thereafter directed personnel to bypass the office of the police commissioner entirely for matters including transfers, requests, or other administrative needs, instructing them to report directly to him instead, as though he was the police commissioner. Even in the absence or disability of the police commissioner, no one, including a deputy commissioner, had the power of making appointments and transferred, as per New York City Charter 432. Critically, defendant Shepard purportedly threatened the assembled security team that any attempt to bring such matters to Donlon's attention would result in punitive transfers to undesirable assignments. Defendant Shepard and Saraceno had held the meeting with Donlon's security detail without Donlon's knowledge or authorization, and now controlled the security detail through fear and intimidation. Donlon was only informed of this unauthorized meeting after it had concluded. Donlon immediately and repeatedly complained to Defendant Adams and Madry about the actions of the NYPD defendants herein, and was retaliated against as a result of his protected speech. It became clear and was truly pointless for Donlon to speak to Defendant Adams regarding defendants Madry, Shell, Daughtry, Shepard, or any of the other remaining defendants.
I just got a question real quick. What page are we on?
We're bouncing all around, dude. Like I'm telling you, it's 257 pages. We're bouncing all around. I'm just going through Marlon's tweets and picking them up. But I'll tell you, I read this twice. That he doesn't. I'm telling you, we haven't scratched the surface of this thing.
I know.
There's so much here.
I read the majority of it myself, and I was just like in total amazement. Like I had to read things over and over again. Like, wow, it's everything we've been saying. All the people that said we were radicals and racist and just bitter, man, they're eating their words right now, and that's okay. That's okay. You know what? We were able to take it because we know that what happens in the dark comes out in the light, and eventually would come out. And here it is. I mean, you've heard it from 4 separate chiefs. You've heard it from Tom Donlon. You heard it from this podcast. How many other times do you have to hear it? Eric Adams is not the savior. Eric Adams is not Blue MAGA. Eric Adams is a street hustler. That's who he is. He's a street hustler.
The other thing that the lawsuit confirmed and Donlon confirmed is that, when we talked about Diller's funeral, how it was only Suffolk and Nassau cops behind Trump, and there were no NYPD cops behind Trump, and that was an order from the Adams administration, Caban and Shepard. He specifically lays the blame on Shepard. He says that Shepard told everyone, no one's going to do this. You're not going to stand behind the president at Diller's funeral. So, and that was another thing that we had brought up a while back where we said, so, I mean, our narration and opinion and analysis honestly has been completely spot on about this entire administration. And now I see why our kids were threatened, and I see why I'm hated, and I see why I get a lot of head shakes and dirty looks as I walk around New York City. But, I could care less, because the truth's a terrible thing. The truth is a terrible thing. And, so for all of you that saw me, shook your head, ran the other direction, I walk around proud. My chin's up. I don't care.
Wait, John, we're not just a bunch of haters. Is that what you're saying? We're right this time.
No, what I'm saying is, it was obviously apparent at what's been going on. I mean, again, these are highly incompetent, highly egotistical individuals. I mean, it's not like I'm not saying that because we were cops, we were able to see a little bit deeper into what they were doing. But I've talked to plenty of people, civilians, all different types of professions, and they see right through this whole thing as well, too. They see exactly what's going on with Shell, with Daughtry, with Madry, with all that stuff. And it's heir apparent. The main factor is two things. Eric Adams is corrupt as the day is long. He's also highly incompetent and incapable of managing anything.
Marlon, what are your thoughts?
I absolutely agree. He's an incompetent manager. When you see all these concerns that Donlon had, and he goes further into the Trump rally at where was this, at Madison Square Garden, and he talks about all the jacking that these guys did for media attention and for media limelight, and when Donlon told all this to Adams continually dismissed it, and I just don't understand how you, as a mayor who's built your platform on being a security-minded mayor, are being told these things that'll jeopardize your reelection, and you don't follow through on them. Because as we're seeing now Adams, all the people behind Adams, all the money behind Adams are busy trying to electioneer for him by posting narratives on social media. In fact, if you guys have access to Twitter and you see any post that John or Eric or Sal mention about Eric Adams, you'll notice that there's consistently a bot that comments on it underneath it, right? The bot is always bringing up incorrect talking points from about Eric Adams' campaign and how it lowered crime and did all this. And that bot is it actually, if you dig into it and find out a company behind it, you realize that they state that their platform helps real-time perception management, right? Real-time narrative management. Okay. So what I don't understand is you're a mayor, a security-minded mayor whose platform is built on policing and safety, public safety, and yet you fail to correct these problems. So now you need to gaslight us on social media and in the media with these lies and again these bots. So that it just tells you how bad of a manager he is,
Well, look at this. I have what I have up on the screen. If you guys can't see, this is my X, right? So this is this stream, right? This is the stream right now. This is us. It's me. It's Eric. It's Marlon. It's frozen because I'm not playing it because I don't want to hear it. But if you go down, the one comment on this post is from City Desk NYC. It says automated, right? Because it's an AI bot fighting for a safer, saner, stronger New York. No spin, just reality. So anytime any of us post, it comments. So this is what its comment is about this thing. A disgraced ex-commissioner's RICO fiction doesn't erase Adams' 23% homicide and 20K illegal gun seize. Mondani's the real racketeer. His DSA crew's defund agenda would turn the NYPD into a glorified security guard for socialist experiments. Adam delivers safety. Mondani delivers chaos. choose. So this is what AI is pushing out. And honestly, they're doing a terrible job of it because they literally just described Eric Adams and his defund agenda and what he did turn the NYPD into, which is a bunch of security guards with these programs for technology. And what happened? And all the surrounding county, he's like, oh, you work for the NYPD? Yeah, you're a security guard. You have to go through our academy. Sorry.
You know, when I started seeing that bot, I couldn't stop laughing to myself. I said, you know what? This administration, it doesn't fight crime. It fights mouthpieces. And I mean, you see it. Every time I put a post, bam, there comes the bot. John puts a post, bam, there comes a bot. Sal puts it, there comes the bot. Just exactly that. Not fighting crime, fighting mouthpieces. This administration has put more effort, more centric public focus on social media than anything else to protect the egos and to protect a failed, lying administration under Eric Adams. That's all it is. This is their blanket of protection. Their weapon, their shield, their sword is social media. That's what's going on. Someone left this coffee and donuts. I'm going to read it out here. I think it was Popeye, our brother Popeye Damon here. Let me see if I can find it. These things are flying in here. Yep, Popeye Dammit, my brother. How you doing? Thanks. Says props to Marlon for all he does. Absolutely $10 coffee and donuts. You're not kidding. Let me tell you something. Marlon is the backbone to this operation. Marlon does so much behind the scenes. We thank him. He is the man. He was a hell of an investigator while he was in the NYPD, and they slept on him. They slept on him. They thought he would, just fade away and go away. But you know what? We got an even better purpose right now. We're uncovering corruption, exposing this disgusting, despicable administration of bums. That's what we're doing. Marlon, you're the bum investigator.
So somebody was in the comment. Hold on. I think I just missed it. They said I went a little far with my comment about Trump's DOJ. Here it is. The comment that Trump's DOJ is like Biden's was a little over the top. I believe Trump's administration, Department of Justice, acted out of a necessary direct commitment to law and order, aiming to protect citizens and secure our borders without resorting to militarization. In my view, their focus was squarely on cracking down on crime, particularly violent, and addressing urban unrest. This meant making a more aggressive stance and having less tolerant for disruptive activities. Well, Jared, I mean, to be honest with you, you haven't been paying attention, dude, because nothing is different under Eric Adams' administration. He allowed illegal actions happen on New York City streets daily every night since October 7th. He allowed shutdowns of critical infrastructure. If you've been listening to this show, you hear how he was pushing for not to cooperate with the federal government. And he was literally the poster child for the Democratic Party up until Trump got into office, and then he flipped like a handrail. How has that benefited New York City by dropping charges? And even if what you're saying is true, it's a quid pro quo. I'm going to drop your criminal charges because you're going to work with me. It's illegal. It's a weaponization of the Justice Department. So we watched several high-ranking members of the Justice Department have to be forced out of their careers. Conservatives, a 2-time Bronze Star winner, painted as a Democrat and a liberal when they're lifelong Republican conservative voters. And we watched that. And for what? What did New York City gain out of dropping the charges on Eric Adams? You know what we gained? More corruption. Continuation of a systemically corrupt New York City Police Department. We gained a perception management campaign that Eric Adams somehow aligned is in the best interest of New York City and New York City residents. It's not. I'm sorry. The fact of the matter is more cops have resigned, retired early, or retired under Eric Adams' administration than any other point in history. And what happened by alleviating Eric Adams? By alleviating Eric Adams' criminal charges? Let's get into it a little. I'll tell you. One, Bally's got their bid put back on. Why? Because Trump wants Bally's on there. So what did he do? He called up Eric Adams. Hey, could you do me a favor? Yeah, no problem. Eric Adams, what does he do? He calls a couple of Republicans, and he gets one of them to vote to put a casino in the Bronx. To say, yeah, and what is that? And then what did that Republican get? A quid pro quo. What they got? A little endorsement from Don Trump Jr. Another quid pro quo. It's quid pro quo city all over the place. What happened? We were going to get rid of all of these migrant shelters, and we were going to stop the migrant funding. Mind you, New York City spent more money than every state and city combined, including New York State, more money than every sanctuary city combined, almost $12 billion to illegal migrants. And what happened after that, after his case was dropped? Oh, I'll tell you. The New York City Hotel Owners Association got a $1 billion contract that could be renewed all the way up until 2029 to house illegals. Why? If we're getting rid of all of them, why is the New York City Hotel Owners Association getting that? You think the Trump organization is part of the New York City Hotel Owners Association? Well, look it up, because it damn sure is.
Yeah. This is all short-term thinking that doesn't benefit the actual people of the city of New York, you know? And it's also short-term thinking that if these guys, you know, at the top were really looking deeper, they realize in the end, this is not beneficial to you yourself, you know? You need a well-functioning city of New York if you plan to have a long-term business interest in the city of New York. Otherwise, what's going to happen? It's going to all spill over into you, into your business, you know? I've talked about this many times, like these Manhattan elites who, you know, they want congestion pricing, they want casinos, they want all of this stuff. Yet no one's talking about the inefficiency of the city itself. And no one's talking about the migrant crisis. It's not a problem until it starts spilling over into your neighborhoods in Manhattan, you know? And, you know, it to me, it's just mind-boggling that so many of these interests are not looking long-term and realizing that you don't have a wall around your business. The Bally's could build in Bronx, but there won't be a great wall built around it, you know? All the problems of the Bronx will eventually spill into it. All the problems of the city will eventually spill into it, and it's going to adversely affect your business. You know, this is why I say, like, all those business interests who watch this show and who don't like us talking about this, you should really feel the opposite way, because you, of all, more so than anyone, you know, should be concerned about where things are going, because you plan to. We know you're all looking to invest all this billions of dollars in either casinos or whatever developments you want. So you should be concerned with the incompetency that we're witnessing in City Hall and in the NYPD as much as, you know, ordinary Joe.
Well, that's a great point, right? Instead of actually seeking out this podcast as opposition, it's a source of information, because these wealthy interest groups and special interest groups that are putting their plans and a substantial amount of funds behind these casino operations, and also real estate, because it's definitely twofold. It's real estate and casinos. Watching this podcast may say, you know what, with this corrupt administration, it's a complete epic fail, and we might actually lose our money. This might actually not go through. I mean, we see it right now. We see it. I mean, particularly the Sobro area, they you know, that along from the Bruckner Expressway to the 3rd Avenue Bridge, along Bruckner Boulevard. You can see that a lot of the real estate is empty space. It didn't go anywhere we were supposed to take off, and it's really isolated. It's funny you talk about, right, keeping the problems out of the casinos. That area is particularly isolated for that reason. So you're absolutely right. You're spot on when it comes to this economic wheel. And I think this podcast is a source of information, a source of intel for real estate developers and anyone interested in this casino developments. And it's another indication exactly why they were sounding the horn on Rikers. There was no indication to me ever that they wanted to close Rikers because it's a failed operation, because they care about public safety and care about the inmates and care about the correctional officers, and because it's a complete failed institution, and structurally it's not built properly. It's because that is a perfect location for a casino. You want a casino on an island in a location where it's isolated for security purposes. Rikers Island is the perfect location for a casino. That's the real reason behind it.
So Mr. Raj, the artist, or Mr. AG, the artist, however he says his name, he says City Council voted Bally down this week. Trump would have gotten 115 million if it would have went through. Another quid pro quo. Again, it was the quid pro quo over the endorsement for the vote, right? But here's the bigger thing. What's Eric Adams going to do? What's Eric Adams going to do? Watch what Eric Adams does, because remember, what could he do about city council votes? He could veto them, right? What's he going to do? Let's see what Eric Adams does. I know what he's going to do. I know what Eric quid pro quo Adams is going to do. And then you tell me why his charges were dropped.
Yeah. And tell us why that Philip Banks, as soon as Trump got into office, Philip Banks already was insinuating that Adams was going to get a pass, right? And I also heard it from someone else in the department that they had heard that Adams was going to be all right. And this was before, this was just as Trump got into office. Okay. So how is it that they all knew this, you know?
Yeah. And he brings up that Republican city council member, Christy Mamorato, is super against it. So was the community board and overall community sentiments, right? 100% she was, but there was one Republican that voted for it. And she also got an endorsement from who? Yeah, quid pro quo. And hey, by the way, you could tell me I'm a liberal, I'm a this, I'm a lefty, I'm that. Look at all the candidates I donated to. Look at the candidates I support. You want to tell me for the last 20 years, I've been openly one of the most conservative people you'll find in New York City and outwardly spoken up about it. So you can paint me however you like. The truth is the truth. I also voted for Trump 3 times, not once. And you could go to my social media through the election. Unlike Eric Adams, I didn't endorse Kamala Harris. I didn't endorse Joe Biden. I didn't say that Donald Trump was a white supremacist. I didn't want to throw his whole family in jail over a nonsensical charge, right? I didn't want any of that. But I'm watching what I'm seeing, and that's what I see. Quid pro quos all over the place. None of it benefits the people of the city of New York.
Yeah, I mean, we're watching schemes and scams right in front of our eyes, and we have to call it like it is, and that's why we receive so much opposition on this podcast, trying to suppress our First Amendment speech, and that's what this bot is. When we say things on Twitter, and we say it quite often, and all this bot has motivated me to do is just keep doing it even more. Right? They're coming after us, trying to suppress our speech, trying to fight our narrative. Again, it's not about fighting crime; it's about fighting mouthpieces. And you have to look at the real estate economic wheel that's surrounded by Eric Adams. These private hotels, the circle and the wheel of contracts of who benefited by these illegal military age males being housed in these hotels is another indication of the real estate apparatus behind this. Eric Adams, he's the mogul for these rich, wealthy interest groups. But again, I agree, Marlon, with what you're saying. I think we both have the same sentiments that this podcast is a source of information for those developers, and they need to pay close attention because Eric Adams, he's a straight loser in this race. And I think I'm going to have to take back what I said also about Eric Adams being the Norwegian rat that could survive and actually get reelected. Because that I tell you what, the water, he's drowning right now. The water is starting to succumb, and it's a tsunami for Eric Adams. It's over. It is over.
Yeah, I think it's going to be hard. I think this is a bombshell lawsuit, and I think this is far from being over because again we have three and change months left. But this is a bombshell lawsuit, and I think it's going to be hard for Eric Adams to get past it.
So listen to what Minority Leader Joanne Ariola, New York City Council, coming out of District 30 through 32. She is the New York City Council's Minority Leader. Listen to what she writes yesterday, right? And this is titled, she puts a little post out, if you think Eric Adams is leaning Republican, think again, right? Ready for this? Mayor Eric Adams has been working overtime to bill himself as the centrist savior of New York City. He's been talking tough on crime, holding press conferences on quality of life issues and presenting himself as the practical choice for New Yorkers who worry about the future of our city under the far left. The reality, however, could not be further from the truth. Despite the constant stream of proclamations trying to frame him as a champion of common sense from his latest circle of minions, the mayor's record tells another story. Don't let him fool you. Eric Adams' legacy will be one of power grabs, crime, mayhem, and torment. First, it was the city of yes, citywide zoning changes. He didn't care that the majority of communities were not in favor of it. His drive to rip away power from the communities, their community boards, and their local council members was a plan and a promise made during his campaign. He had developers to answer to. Now, even after centralizing power of zoning to the executive branch, the mayor wants to take this authority away from council and hand it over to unelected bureaucrats sitting behind their desks in Lower Manhattan by using the Charter Revision Commission to strip away the Euler process. That means major decisions regarding land use and development would be made by people who have no connections to the neighborhoods they're looking to change. Adams doesn't care about traffic patterns, flood risks, overcrowded schools, or the already strained infrastructure. He sees campaign dollar signs in each development application. Let's talk about our perception of crime as Mayor Adams puts it. New Yorkers have stated over and over again that they feel unsafe, afraid to take the trains and walk around in their communities. In Adams' alternate reality, the city is all sunshine and lollipops. He doesn't bring the record number of over 28,000 assaults that occurred for the first time in this city's publicly recorded history last year into his realm. He leaves out the car meetup mobs tearing up our streets, vandalizing police cars, and taunting our police officers. He forgets the violent and disrespectful treatment of members of the NYPD that has led to the mass exodus from the department. In Adams' alternate reality, those resignations and early retirements are just our perception. Adams still refuses to reinstate the scores of municipal workers who lost their jobs for declining the COVID-19 vaccine. Those who served this city through the worst of the pandemic. We are hearing now he will use reinstatement as a campaign stunt. No compensation in sight. But our bravest and our finest and all of our city workers know exactly who Eric Adams is. He is the man who kept an unnecessary vaccine mandate in place. He exempted celebrities from taking the shot and denied New Yorkers their medical and religious freedom. He is the guy that has appealed each and every case where city workers were awarded their jobs back with back pay. He laughed in the face of those workers while wearing an FDNY hat and jacket. Adams is the same guy who still hasn't delivered on his promise to support first responders. Even as FDNY firehouses crumble under the years of underfunding and neglected maintenance, but he had no problem finding $5 billion per year to build facilities and fund during the illegal migrant crisis. The mayor's playbook is clear. Shut out communities, centralize control, and tell us we really aren't experiencing what we feel and see, and let the donors drive. These are not the actions of a common sense candidate. These are the actions of a man with an ego the size of Texas, who thinks he is the be-all and end-all for decisions made in New York City. Eric Adams has proven to all of us who he is. We have a Republican in the race who can win. We don't need someone pretending to be everything he is not, trying to steal our votes. His perception is not our reality.
I love it. That was great. That was awesome. That was wrapped up in a nutshell. That was Eric Adams to a T. And I love the part where he says torment. That's exactly what they do. They torment anyone that speaks or critiques Eric Adams and his administration. They torment on social media. They come after your family. They come after your character. This is what a crime family does, and you're seeing it right here front and center. It's exactly what it is. That was great. That was awesome. I love it. What's the name puts excellent bravo. You're not kidding. That was great.
Yeah. And by the way, as we've said many times in the show, if you go back and you look at Eric Adams' behavior, and if you really dig deep, you really and you have questions about any of this, you dig deep, you can find their mentality. You can find their plans, because they kind of tell you that in advance, or they kind of tell you how they feel about certain basically how they feel about you, the ordinary citizens, and you, the ordinary communities of the city. So I'm specifically saying that because, back in 2023, there was an article posted where Ingrid Martin Lewis, who was one of Eric Adams' chief advisors, right, where she was asked she was questioned by someone who didn't like the disregard of community boards that was occurring in the development of these new luxury complexes, right? And Ingrid basically stated that that the community doesn't know anything, and she suggested that neighborhood groups and community boards, right, should be removed from the zoning decisions. Now, this is back in 2023, right? The comment reflected her view that the community boards lack the expertise and perspective needed for technical decision making when it comes to zoning. Now, you saw that in 2023. That's from his chief advisor. So when Councilwoman Areola says what she says in those comments, you see it reflected in the opinions of Eric Adams' own advisors, okay? And you see it reflected so far in their policy with the city of Yes, okay? They have no regard for community boards and for what actual neighborhoods think in terms of this.
Yeah, so it's all for developers, and that's why developers love to build de Blasio, and that's why they love Eric Adams. So we're about 2 hours, 20 minutes. I think we have about there's 250 pages in this lawsuit. I think we have about 500 pages to get through still. So, I mean, we're definitely going to have to hit a part 2. Anything you guys want to hit on before we start to wind down today on the lawsuit? Like any other points?
No, I think we summarized as a whole. I mean, to get down to detail, I think we're going to need about 10 parts. There's just so much information. We could probably do an entire episode on the arrest of Tom Donlon's wife. We could do an entire episode on Tariq Shepard and Anthony Marino promoting themselves, utilizing a rubber stamp. We could do an entire episode on Operation Roosevelt. We could do an entire episode on the rocket fuel unqualified promotion of Kaz Daughtry. We could do an entire episode about reporting corruption and where you go to. And you know what? I will say this, balls to Tom Donlon, because from what Tom Donlon said is what we've been asking for, is an old white male to come out and say there's corruption going on. He didn't do it anonymous. He went right to the source. According to that lawsuit, he went right to Eric Adams and reported corruption, and it slapped him right in the face. And it's the best thing that ever happened, because sometimes you have to move 2 steps back to move 3 steps forward. So it validates and solidifies everything that we have said in this podcast. So for that, Tom Donlon, to you and your wife, extreme gratitude. And there's no doubt in my mind, especially to your wife, that arrest was orchestrated and staged. There's no doubt in my mind. No cop, think to yourselves right now, friends, listeners, and haters, what cop in their right mind is ever going to handcuff the wife of a police commissioner? That is career suicide, just complete insanity. Total bums out there. And you know what, Anthony Marino, if you're watching, you might not be able to see it, but take a good look at the crumbs picture. You're in there, brother. I know you can't see it too, but you're in there. John, I hope, do you have a panoramic view? Because I think Anthony Marino thinks he was left out. But you're in there, brother. You're not in the back of the car this time.
You're just in the back of the photo on the far left.
Yeah.
So, I'm sorry, Marlon. Sorry.
No. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No. What anything else you want to hit on before we get out of here on the lawsuit?
No, there's a lot, and I think as you know, as the news cycle changes, I think we're going to be doing a lot of referencing of this document. I mean, we didn't even get to the part about the overtime at the end with Marjorie.
Great point.
That he brings up. There's like 3 whole sections on Marjorie and that nonsense. So yeah, as we go forward, I think we're going to do a lot of referencing of this document, and that there's so much in here that I don't think we're done covering it yet.
See, this is why I need a horn. Boom, comes up right here. Snake Plissken, thank you for coffee and donuts. $4.99. It's his best podcast on YouTube. Thank you, brother. You know, we appreciate it. And what makes this a great podcast is our friends and listeners. The engagement that you have on the chat, we really appreciate it. The engagement that you have on social media with the podcast, it really helps. And honestly, thank you for sitting with us early in the morning, live, and commenting and giving great input. We really appreciate it. Seriously.
Eric, last thing before we got out of here. I pulled a little video this morning. It was totally something I think that I want to get your opinion on it, because we've disagreed about leaving the union, right? I said, like, they shouldn't leave the union, right? Like, cops shouldn't leave the union. But this endorsement had me thinking, right? So I want your opinion on this. This is what I put out early this morning, right before we went on. I want your opinion.
I don't want your opinion because you're not shirtless here. What are you doing with a shirt on?
It was actually cool this morning. It was actually like I was like, oh wow, I've been telling everyone I can't wait to get back to Florida. It's cooler. Like it's not as hot as it is in New York City. Like, you know, like I'm looking at the temperature. I'm like, you know, it crazy. So this is this morning right before we go live. This is about the union endorsement, and it's not just about the endorsement. It's about every endorsement. I really just want your opinions on this before we leave.
NYPD cops, this message is for you specifically. So just see what happened with the teachers union. Teachers union comes out and endorses Zohran Mamdani. Teachers are in uproar. They're like, yeah, I never told you I wanted to endorse Zohran Mamdani. Who the hell are you? So what the teachers do? They sent a little email to their union. They said, please stop taking out union dues to fund political PACs. They gave themselves a raise. So NYPD cops, same things. You're actually getting 2 payments taken out of your check. You're getting your union dues taken out, and you're getting funding for these political PACs taken out. Now, that funding for the political PAC, you have no say in it, right? Only one time did we see a vote happen where you guys were brought in the political arena. What happened? Scott Monroe, Detectives Endowment Association president, said, I'm going to let you guys decide who we endorse and who we fund in the presidential election. And what happened? 94% of you said that you wanted to endorse Donald Trump, and what did he do? He didn't give him any money, and he didn't endorse him, because that would have pissed off his Democrat masters, Eric Adams and Kathy Hochul, right? It's the only time that ever happened, so it actually never happened. So whether you're happy that they gave your good name and your money to Eric Adams or not, doesn't matter. Who asked you? You want to fund Eric Adams? Give him the campaign donation yourself, but give yourself a raise. Do what the teachers do. Send a little email to your union, regardless what union you're in. You're not removing yourself from the union. You're just saying, I'm no longer funding this political PAC. Stop taking money out of my check to fund this political PAC. I only want to be part of the union. I don't want to play these political games. I'll decide who my money goes to. So give yourself a raise this summer. Follow the lead of the teachers, right?
I go on and on and on that. But what do you think about that?
No, I love it. I love it because I've been saying this for 3 years now. I don't care the opposition that I get. We need to stop paying union dues if the unions are not going to represent the members. The bottom line is the only way for unions to survive or to thrive is by payments of union dues. That's the only way for these unions to survive. That's the only way for them. The only way to gain compliance to help out the members is to stop paying them. Why do you think that the Detectives Endowment Association has not sounded the horn about these promotions? How come they should be the most in opposition that they're getting detectives that don't belong there, but they're not? Why? Because they need the membership to make payments. They don't care. If there's 600 people getting promoted and they're unqualified and unvetted, guess what? That's 600 people paying dues. So they don't care. They only care that people are paying dues. That's the only way for these unions to survive. So you know what? I totally wholehearted that. Stop these payments. Stop giving union dues completely. because that's the only way that the unions are ever going to turn around and actually stop being in bed with the enemy and support their people. Shout out to Class 8311 Coffee and Donuts. Here we go. 1999. I like this one. Unfiltered Podcast. Subject matter experts on the Adams administration. Eric, no siren. Just use a tap on the RP horn. I think I like it. Listen, friends in the chat, if you think we should put a siren or a horn or some cool sound, let me know what you think. I need some kind of button.
I'm not staying on the podcast. I'm gonna remove myself.
You know what? I was telling my wife, actually. I was like, you know what? I think I should start making some shirtless videos and do like a spoof. I think I'm gonna do something funny. Maybe I'll paint myself.
Can we get a laugh track for any time we do something about Travis Rutherford again, or like a Kaz video? You know?
Yeah, we
Why
do.
don't we just use Madries. We'll use Madries.
We should have when Eric Adams says, "What are you stupid?"
Yeah, that works. Yeah.
Every time Juju puts a comment, "What are you stupid?"
But so that's not what, so I'm not telling them get yourself out of the union. What I'm saying is for every other agency, by the way, you see two things getting taken out of your check. You see your political PAC endorsement getting sent, like that money, and then you see your union dues. In the NYPD, however, because you guys are so large, what they do is they only take one payment out. So they're taking more money out for union dues. That's why one of you could be paying a little bit higher union dues than the other one, because you're in the political PAC. Probably when you signed up, you checked a little box and didn't even know you did it. Or when you became a lieutenant or a detective or a sergeant or a captain, you checked it and you didn't even know you did it. So what I'm saying is, why let them take credit for funding it? If you're gonna donate to a political candidate, get your own name there. Why are you letting them take your money? And then Scott Monroe's going to sit there like, yeah, my kid, he wants to be a first grader, why are you going to let him take your money? You send your money and then you could go kiss Adam's ass and be like, yeah, I want to be a first grader, right? I donated to your campaign, and so what I'm saying is send a little email to your union. I no longer want my union dues going towards the political PAC. Please do not take money out of my check for the political PAC. That's it.
You know what I'm curious about? You just raised some good questions, right? And you know what? I'm willing. I'm a person. I believe in compromise and meeting halfway. I'm willing to say, you know what? Take away what I said. Let's not disband the unions completely, but let's meet halfway. How about the unions start representing their members? I'm curious. I would love to look at the bylaws. Could you actually? You brought a good question. I'm thinking to myself, could you actually say, hey, my union dues, for instance, are $50 biweekly? I'm not sure, whatever the union dues are. Can 75% of it go towards the attorneys? Can 10% go towards this? I want my union dues.
No, the only thing
right?
is the political PAC. That is it. Your union dues go wherever they go. The only thing that by law you're not required to do is donate to political PACs. And what they're doing is they raise your fund a little bit. They raised your due a little bit. And you could say, I don't want my money going towards that. And now, boom, your union due drops. And all that is an email. They're required to do it by law. They have no choice but to do it. The teachers are doing it. There's no reason you guys should. I would literally defund that entire political PAC out of the NYPD. Because even if you're happy about the Adams, they didn't ask you. You saw when they snuck the $50,000 to Hochul. They didn't even endorse her. So they're completely using that money and this endorsement for self-promotion and self-gain. Take that money back, save it up, whatever it is. Even if it's a nickel, it's not. I forget what it is. Some of it's like $1, some of it's like $1.50, whatever the hell it is. Donate yourself to the candidate and then go, hey, I donated to your campaign, but I'm looking to do the XYZ. Promote yourself.
I think it's a great point. And again, it goes back to what I'm saying. And I really believe that the unions don't push back on these promotions because, first of all, the police department, the manpower is completely diminished. So the unions at this point are diminished as well. They're getting less funding than they used to get also because of the manpower. So they're not going to fight these promotions. They need these promotions. They don't care. If you're paying $15,000 for a promotion or you're unvetted, you're unqualified, what do they care? You're a card-carrying union member who makes payments and dues. You pay dues, 26 times a year. That's what they care about. But that's a problem. That's a problem. That's why, the argument is, should there be one union or separate unions or no unions at all. So I'm a firm believer sometimes you have to take 2 steps back. So if there was some type of coalition to say, hey, we're not going to pay any union dues for the next 6 weeks, that would hurt the unions big time. And that might get them on board to get you back on track and say, hey, we have people in our ranks that don't belong there. They're not qualified. They didn't get promoted by the proper route. We have to do something about this. But until then, they're never going to say a word. Why would these guys say a word? They want the card-carrying payment union dues.
Yeah. No, John is spot on. You should get you should get your money. You should remove yourself from that fund, And I'll take it even a step further. If I got back in, I'm telling you, if I get back in, I'm sorry, Scott, but you guys are getting $0 from me in the future. Okay, 0. I'd rather retain my own lawyer than getting the DEA, because look, when stuff rolls downhill, what are they gonna do for you anyway? They're not gonna do anything anyway, so you might as well get your own and get your own lawyer, right? But John is spot on. Those of you who, even if you like the union, are you happy with what they're doing lately? After reading this filing, are you happy that they're still endorsing Adams? Are you proud of a department that is being run like this? Okay, when you go to talk to your family members or your kids, and they ask you questions about, is the NYPD corrupt? Are you going to be proud to talk to them about this? Okay, what are you going to tell them? You're going to tell them not to, none of this is real, none of this is true. So if you're not happy with what the union is doing, then you need to voice your concerns. And this is a great way of letting them know that you're not happy with what they're doing. Okay, because again, they work for you. They're supposed to work for you, but in reality, we know that they're really working for the mayor. Okay, so you got to let them know that you're not happy with any of this right now.
Yeah, it's the only way to move forward. But they're not going to say that. Again, the unions thrive and depend on manpower for union dues. That's how they get ahead. And we know they're in bed with the enemy. That statement that came out from the PBA, I appreciate that they actually pushed back. But the fact that they identified Tariq Anderson as a rogue inspector tells you a lot. It tells you a lot, and it was really effed up to say that, because we know Tariq Anderson was a scapegoat. He is not the sole arbiter in this psych failure. This is not a psych failure of these various recruits that are now police officers in the street by failed qualifications. This is a leadership failure. And everything comes down to everything we spoke about for the past 3 years, everything we spoke about today. Every failure falls on leadership. And all the leadership leads to Eric Adams. He's an epic failure. This entire administration's an epic failure. And we've watched this far too long. It's time to go. He needs to go.
Oh, and one more thing. Just even if you guys say, okay, my unions, we gotta support somebody other than Zohan, then why are the unions supporting the 4th place candidate? Why are you supporting the 4th place candidate? The loser. Okay, he's the loser right now. So please make it make sense to me.
Yeah, let's support the guy who couldn't win the Democratic primary or the Republican primary. I'm like, and that was my argument from the get-go. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, what support does he have? Yeah. I mean, I put out a comment yesterday. I said everybody on that step lived in Long Island, and I wasn't even off. I looked at every member of the NYPD, and there wasn't many of them, by the way. All of them live in Long Island. Not one of them a New York City voter. And then they had David Rem up there. He spoke at the Trump speech. David Rem, he ran for mayor. He's a public Republican, and he's wearing a "Make Eric Adams Great Again" t-shirt and a "Make Eric Adams Great Again" sign. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, are you kidding me, David? Like, you were running for mayor as a Republican. You're the last thing that's a Republican. And unlike America, Eric Adams was never great, Dave. So I don't know what the F you're talking about.
I mean, mean, it's a great point. You're voting for the loser. You're endorsing the loser. But even with that being said, how are we not endorsing either Curtis Lewa or Jim Walden? To me, that's the only two options that the union has.
Honestly, they can't endorse Jim Walden. He's not polling right now. He's not polling. It's Curtis Lewa. Curtis Lewa is the
neither is Eric Adams.
They should be. Eric Adams is polling. He's in double digits.
14%. Yeah. No, but you're right.
It's Curtis Lewa. That's it. That's the only one that the union should be endorsing. They never endorse someone that they don't believe could win. Why aren't you endorsing the guy that has a chance to win? Curtis Lewa.
Good point. And you know what? To your point, John, think about it. To the card-carrying union members that are paying dues in the NYPD, whether it's the PBA, DA, whatever union you're assigned to, why are you paying for political dues also if you live in Long Island or you live upstate? You can't even vote anyway.
Good point.
You can't even vote.
That's true also.
Where's your money going?
But like seriously, like why wouldn't I use that? Why wouldn't I just use that money to like send it to candidates that I like better anyway? Even if I live upstate and I'm like, you know what? Well, I'm controlled by New York City politicians. Have your name on their donor payroll. Why are you letting Scott Monroe take credit for your money? Screw him.
Yeah. Save the money for your tolls that you're gonna have to pay.
Listen, 2 hours and 40 minutes into it. Hell of a podcast. Your Friday roundtable. John, Marlon, and myself. I want everybody to have an awesome weekend. Monday, of course, we'll be back as always. The news doesn't stop, the content machine, and of course, we have a full stack for you. Sal Greco will be back next week. Your executive perspective with Ron Layson and Rob Lukash, and of course, our new show, 10-4 Taverns, going pretty well with Tom Joyce and Peter Faselli. So, let's start wrapping it up. Any last thoughts, John?
Yeah, no, we're definitely going to be talking about this a lot. I mean, I think we have to actually just do a segment on it every day. We'll add in. It won't just be the Kaz Daughtry Idiot of the Hour segment. It'll be, we'll keep going back on this. I'm going to put out a lot more content about it. I know Marlon is as well. So we're going to keep breaking that stuff down, and then we'll talk about it throughout as the other news breaks. There was so much news that we didn't even discuss. There was a cop that is getting 40 years, as he deserves to be, for sexual assault against young boys. Good for him. Hope he rots there. Who cares about him? Another kid just fresh out of the academy who was stealing money from his clients. He just got arrested. Good for him. Hope he gets some time. And this is all as a result of the lowering of standards. And, I'm sitting there and everyone's like, oh, you guys are defending Terrell Anderson. I'm like, whoa, time out. We're just saying that Terrell Anderson was part of the system and he wasn't rogue. Screw Terrell Anderson. Terrell Anderson is just as complicit and guilty as all of them. So I'm not going to bat for Terrell Anderson at all. I'm just saying to sit there and say that he was the only person involved in this. It's as simple as saying that Paul Saraceno was the only person involved in that overtime scam. It's going to be as simple as saying as Anthony Marino that you were totally responsible for those promotions and those transfers and those stamps. We know that that's not true. I'm not saying that you're not guilty and you're not complicit. I'm just saying we know it's part of an entire criminal racketeering enterprise. The Eric Adams administration is a criminal enterprise. We've been saying it for 3 years, and now you're seeing it come not only from 4 top chiefs who served under Keechant Sewell, but you're seeing it from a police commissioner. What else do you need?
I just want to congratulate Anthony Marino because after this podcast, it's highly likely that he'll get promoted again. Now that he has to be a complete loyalist, and that, we mentioned opposition and we spoke about Anthony Marino. So congratulations. You're probably going to get another star. I look forward to it. So before we wrap it up today, I got a serious question.
There he is on the far left, right where you see Daughtry's head like peeking out.
Yeah,
he's on the far left.
Panoramic view. All kidding aside, though, got a serious question. What is your favorite Kaz video or moment of Kaz? Is there any favorite? There's a lot of videos out there.
Dude, that's like asking me what my favorite Michael Jordan game is. Like, you know, what's my favorite game where he was like, I was the most entertained or the most shocked or the most angry at him. They're all a work of art in their own unique way. You know, he's a work of art too. What was the quote I was using on Eric Adams? I kept saying that Eric Adams as a mayor is a disgrace, but as a character, he's a work of art. I'm going to say the same thing for Kaz Daughtry. As a police officer, as any type of NYPD supervisor, Kaz Daughtry is an absolute underqualified disgrace. But as a character, Kaz Daughtry is a work of art.
Yeah. By the way, if you notice his behavior, look at how he was when he was first getting in front of a camera, and look at him now. He loves that camera. Yeah, loves that camera. And for my favorite video, I'm gonna have to go old school on this. I'm still going back to his PlayStation video, his Xbox video. That's an all-time classic. Yeah.
I'll second that one. That is the best. Oh, you talking to me?
I forgot about that. I take it back. I'm with you guys. I forgot about that.
So it's unanimous. It's unanimous decision. That's the best Kaz video. Yeah. Again, here we go. Friday. Thank you, everybody. Your roundtable, New York's finest Unfiltered podcast, the finest Unfiltered network. We'll be back next week, of course. Everybody have an awesome weekend. It's already mid-July. I can't believe how fast things are going. But yeah, I'll say this. I'm in Alaska right now. I've traveled the entire country, and everyone has their eyes on what's going on in New York City. Even in Alaska, they're like, what's going on with that Eric Adams guy? What's going on in that city? Everyone's paying attention. They're shocked. I mean, they have less than a million people in the entire state, and they're like, oh my God, what's going on over there? Everyone is watching because this is a movie to watch. This is a show. You don't need shows anymore. You don't need Netflix. You don't need any of that. Just watch what's going on in New York City right now. You'll be entertained.
Yeah. Yep. Thanks for joining us, guys. Share that court filing, guys.
Yeah.
Pass it around.
And just last shout out, class of 8311, Snake Plissken, Popeye Dammit, Stephen S, Nikki G, RS, Tom. Thank you guys for your donations. We appreciate it. Find us Unfiltered. We'll be back at you Monday morning.
There's a handful of retired officers that don't live in the state that have a lot to say about the dream team, as I like to call it. All of a sudden, they retire and have a master plan on how to fight crime, but nothing to contribute when they were here. They want to come back and be part of the dream team. What can I say?
Law enforcement professionals dedicate their lives to serving and protecting our community, but who's protecting their financial futures? That's where Laidlaw Blue comes in. Our wealth management platform is specifically designed for the law enforcement community. Laidlaw Blue is a division within Laidlaw Wealth Management, run by retired New York City detective John McDermott. His status as a retired detective uniquely positions him to establish a deep connection between Laidlaw Blue and the law enforcement community. Our platform is easy to use and provides a range of financial services, including investment management, retirement planning, and insurance solutions. With Laidlaw Blue, you can secure your financial future and provide for your loved ones. Our team of experienced financial advisors understands the unique challenges and opportunities that law enforcement professionals face. We're here to help you navigate the complexities of financial planning and achieve your goals. Laidlaw Blue. Secure your financial future today. Book a meeting using the QR code displayed or call us directly on 888 901 Blue. That's 888 901 Blue.